Hello there, everybody. Welcome for this fantastic matchup today. This is the Kraken Smite League Deep Sea Division, and we are all the way in week number 5, bringing you Food Fighters versus Fallen Angels. It's JudasPriestly today, joined by the one and only Zats. And Zats, today we have two teams with very interesting records because the Food Fighters currently find themselves at 3-1. in week 5, whereas Fallen Angels find themselves at 3-1. Would you believe it? Dead even this late into the playoff phase. How does it feel coming up against a team at this stage that is, for all intents and purposes, equal to you at the moment?
Yeah, it means that, really, I'm expecting fireworks in this game. Obviously, we're 5 weeks in. There's going to be lots of sussing each other out, particularly in this first game. Both teams will have done their homework. They will know a lot about each other. And actually, that's what it's going to come down to. It's about how much research have you done, how much have you tried to get that competitive edge over the other team before you've even got into picks and bans. Because in this kind of matchup, it's all about the small little margins, the fine margins. That's going to be what decides this set and who actually gets the edge after this game is completed.
Well, we are now looking at, of course, the picks and bans for this first game, and it's been quite a volatile time in the meta lately, actually. There's been a lot of change, some big changes, in particular, of course, the big 9.5 revert, but also an update since then, which has brought back some returning items, and somehow, Zets, despite all of these changes, we are still finding ourselves with Medusa being a top pick god. Now, the god has received a couple nerfs, but it seems that Food Fighters have decided they actually quite like this god still. Is it still, for your money, a mid lane pick, or could you see this rotating to the dual lane instead?
I think it's probably best utilized in the mid lane. Just very, very safe clear, lots of massive early damage if you are able to dash in onto a target. I think in the long lane, you're not making the most of that kind of early pressure as much. Because really you want to be in those early team fights. So I prefer to see it in the mid lane, but of course, ADC builds are pretty flexible at the moment. Medusa herself, I think, can work just fine there in the right hands. So I like taking it as a top pick. It's very strong, and of course, you can flex it into 2 potential roles. So a strong first pickup, especially looking at the rest of the picks. They've all picked their tanks, what we're presuming, although, there has been some interesting jungle picks. There's been whisperers about these tanky warrior junglers that we might be seeing a re-emergence. People like Erlang Shen have been buffed recently. No sign of the Erlang in the top phase of this draft so far, which has surprised me a little bit. But not really leaning either way at this point. But again, the Medusa, a good way to start.
Yeah, Medusa, like you said, it can be so well-rounded, but I do like what the Fallen Angels have done in reaction to that, right? Draft that Cucullin and the Bacchus, 2 gods, 2 very tanky frontliners, but in particular can get on top of and behind this Medusa, Medusa, of course, the big vulnerability of having a dash that can be blocked, and I think having gods that just show up exactly where you don't want them to be works so well in favor of Fallen Angels. Now, of course, there's still a Medusa there that you have to deal with somehow, and that's not exactly solved the problem, but they're already on their way towards doing that. Whereas on the side of the Food Fighters, again, not really giving a whole lot away. You've got your support, you've got your solo lane, but Kuzumbo Chak, right? It's this reliable, tanky frontliner. It doesn't say whether you want to get very active early. It doesn't say if you're aiming towards late. It kind of lets you see what's going to happen and feel each other out. And actually, both teams drafting probably their support solo and mid so far, which I presume means just jungle bans completely flying off the shelves coming up next. But with these 2 top 3s coming through right now, is anyone giving you any information here? Has anyone told you anything about how they want to play this game?
I think the term front to back, I think, is a term that's bandied around quite a lot. in this instance, it's going to be, and you know, we see this a lot in the current meta. It's going to be about which backline can survive best. And there are different ways of doing that. I think when you've got the Medusa on your table and the Discordia as well, it's about you'll be able to throw too much damage for a frontline to deal with. But then if there's another frontliner in your face, that's where it starts getting difficult. Now, what I'm looking for is for backliners to be grouped together, playing around whatever CC they have. This Discordia is quite good at locking down a frontliner, and you know, depending what ADC we have with that, you know, someone like an Arno or someone who can shred through those tanks and follow up on that CC that they've already got. What it means is that you'll be able to deal with the front line, and then your own tanks will be able to hopefully go off and solo the enemy ADC, the enemy mid. I actually really like this Rama combined with the Disco. Again, you're not so reliant on needing CC, you just need someone to shred through these tanks. Actually, Rama is going to be pretty good at that. So that's a nice little combo, and I want to see how they play around each other.
Yeah, Rama ticking both the boxes you mentioned there, right? If Discordia gets a taunt onto two of the enemy frontliners, Rama, one of those gods that can just plow damage in the face of them with those astral arrows as well. But similarly, can also stay alive for quite some time. If you just take off into the sky, well, what's a Chuck going to do? You know, you are out of the fight, away from the fight. I could definitely buy a little bit of time for the rest of the team to come help. Now, given there is a Bacchus and a Cucullin on the team of the Rama, there's not going to be a whole lot in the way of peel coming your way. You know, you're not going to have a lot of protection. So being able to just get out of a sticky situation, I think, is a fantastic choice for this Rama. You know, there's a few gods you could go for here, but Rama maybe on that sort of threshold between not like a super safe hunter, but not one that is committing themselves too hard either. You know, you can react quite well to just how the game ends up going. But looks like on the other side of the board, we do have the draft being rounded out with the Hachiman Raven pickups coming through here. So lots of physical damage on the side of this team, but probably have enough of that damage that it doesn't really matter that it's all combined. Yeah,
although I have to say I'm actually not a big fan of this Hachiman pickup here. You know, I think it's perfectly safe in lane. It's got good poke, good clear. Obviously, lots of mobility and CC immunity, but I am a little bit concerned about how well you're going to burn down this front line. It likely means that one will perhaps go crit and one won't, but if I'm Cucullin, it just means that I can build, the new Nemean line, which is returned. You can just go fully into that physical defense, anti-attack speed items. Or anti-auto attack items, I should say. It makes your job so much easier, and I think they're going to struggle to buy enough time, and that means what's going to happen is this Rama, the Discordias we mentioned, are going to burn through the Kuzenbo, burn through the Shack, and then you will be outnumbered, because I don't think this Medusa and Hachi will be able to do enough to this Cucullin and this Bacchus. So that's a bit of a concern for me, and that's why I probably don't favour their draft at this point, but we'll see what happens in game.
Well, which of these two drafts would you kind of say? So obviously you've discussed how there's not enough time possibly for the team to burn through, like you say, this Cucullin, especially when they've got able to stack so much physical defense. But what has to happen for that to happen, basically? Like what do the team need to be doing if they want to be pushing this heavy physical based comp in order to fight into this, well, probably very high physical defense team?
Well, what I actually think they should do is, I think it's going to be key to split up the map as much as possible. When you've got double hunters, you should be encouraged, I think, to play more PvE. So go for those split pushes, try and split up the team fights, because I think the Fallen Angels have a phenomenal team fight. You need to split them up and make sure that the fights are kind of staggered and messy. That's how you're going to get your most success for the food fighters, I think, because in 1v1 situations, I think the food fighters are a lot more favoured. This Kuzenbo, which I presume is going to support, will be able to 1v1 a hunter late game, but not only if it's a straight 1v1. So that's what I'm looking for. That's going to be the key for them to find success come the late game.
All right, I'm interested in that. I do think, while while you say it's going to have to be a scrappy game, or at least a spread out, almost chaotic match for our food fighters to take over. I do think they have the composition to do it. You look
Yeah.
at these gods like Raven, you look at Chak, even Kuzenbo, very good like agents of chaos style gods, right? There's nothing more frustrating than being knocked up 4 times by a Kuzenbo ultimate, right? When you're trying to get on to an enemy backline. So I really like how they have still crafted a draft that seems cohesive. Despite maybe being a bit physical heavy, it does still work out. So I'm very excited to see how that shakes up as we do head over into the game. And like we said, this is a week 5 matchup. Both teams 3-1. Someone will be dropping down to 3-2. The other will be making their way to 4-1. Right now, it's anyone's game, Zats.
Yeah, and I'm really excited. I haven't casted, as you know, for quite a while, and
Really?
yeah, wouldn't you know it? But I do think that in this kind of game, we're looking at Fallen Angels' point of view. They want this to be a very safe, simple game. They're not going to take too many risks. Whereas I think the Food Fighters, the onus is on them to try and make more plays, try and take more risks, and try and get the game up to speed. But I think the impetus is on them, and at this level, if you don't do that with the comp that you've drafted, it will just play more and more into the hands of the Fallen Angels.
If you play simple Smite, but you're at a disadvantage, then there's only going to be one winner when everyone keeps it relatively tight. This is the Deep Sea division. You do expect to see a lot more organization than you might see at the lower levels. You can already see a little bit of brawling going on across all lanes, in fact. Everyone on the side of Fallen Angels taking some early pain, and I think that's what you were alluding to, Zatsu, that food fighters need to be on the front foot. They don't necessarily need an early kill, but you do definitely want the atmosphere to be that the food fighter is going to be on the front foot and looking to push forward.
Yeah, and I think if I'm the Raven here, you've got a couple of options. I would probably be looking at this duo lane. Now while this Kuzuma Hachi combo are pretty safe, you're not be too worried about them. I do think again you need to do more than that. You need to actually get a lead somewhere. There's a brawl going on in the mid lane. This could be where they are most favoured. The dash already comes out, and
goodness.
yeah, Griff already falls. That is a lot of early damage, and could be more trouble here for Zaza.
I think that was the blink coming out from Zexy Zealot there. Reaper just following up. Ooh, Looney Tunes in a little bit of danger there, but is just about okay. This Hachi man more than happy to play back a little bit, has a few potions in the pocket, and has actually gone for a Warrior's Axe as the starter item. I had a few things I want to talk about, Zats, but that's what's drawn my attention first. Is there any reason you might think the Hachi man has gone for this?
I don't hate it, actually. We have seen it before because you can go the Axe of Animosity at level 20. Oh, there's another kill in duo lane.
Well, that's what happens when you don't play back a bit and use up those potions. It does get punished down. Another fight over on the right-hand side. There's a 2-on-2. Starry in some danger. Let's have that little leap away. And Griff showing up again. Happy to brawl it out with Zexy Zealot despite falling down early on. But, of course, this is an NA game. Of course, there's going to be early action. And in fact, Reaper dashing in onto Zareth there. Zareth having to back away, should be alive with no level 5 on the side of Reaper, who just ticks over, has that Petrify, steps forward, and Zareth is fully aware. So everyone on the side of Food Fighters wanting to get active.
And very interesting to note that Reaper has a lot more pots with this start, whereas Zarzeth has used them all already and is already very out. Not too surprising again, this Medusa getting that first blood bounty with that Bluestone Pendant, and naturally the kit itself just means that you are going to have all that pressure, and I'm not sure Mammon could really do much about that. It depends how much you're going to be able to juke of those abilities that are coming out from Reaper, but you're going to need to be very, very careful with that timing, and to be honest, I would just avoid going for that mid lane fight if I was Gayo Griff, especially after dropping that early kill. You just need to try and keep up in farm and try and get some items online, because although this Mammon Brigitte does have a lot of damage in the early game, she is all item dependent.
Ultimates go a flying Bugle Wizard low, but the snipe's not quite on point. Looney Tunes with a perfectly timed Aijutsu there gets the kill, but Helenu returns it, and somehow Tova Mesa picking up the kill on Bugle Wizard. That'll be that. There'll be a huge minion wave there to finish them off. It's 2 for 1 though in favor of the Fallen Angels dueling.
And absolutely tragic. Gator Griff did not even get an assist for that kill. The minions taking the kill. That's really unfortunate. Very low health bar for Patrocles, but not too surprising. It's good Cullen pressure. It's been scrappy, and actually, you know, we said that would favour the Food Fighters. At the moment, it's favouring Fallen Angels, but again, I don't think either side is particularly unhappy at this stage. You get a kill back onto the Hatchet, which I think is pretty important. There's a lot of damage.
Oh, Zarath goes down, and I would talk about that kill normally. Hold on, there's a fight coming on. I have to address this, but I have something to bring to everyone's attention. But Zexy's out taking the fight to Gato Griff. Reaper nearby. Reaper has some damage, but there's more damage going on to Zealot at the moment. Helen who drops the horrific. Griff just doesn't have the damage. Maybe Starry does, leaping over the wall. Can't choose a target, though, and both shall slither away from the Food Fighters. But Zetz, forget everything. We have a Cannoneer's Curious. I wanted to bring something else, but there's a Cannoneer's Curious coming up from Bugle Wizard.
Wow, I had a feeling that we'd see this, and you know, all this fighting is great, but Cannoneer's Curious is in this game, and it is still rubbish. I think it's 250 gold off it now. It's something like 1850 gold, which, you know, I'd argue it should be cheaper still. It's got good stats, but for me, this is an item you buy when you're like really behind, okay? And I don't think Bugle Wizard is particularly behind. I think you're putting yourself at a disadvantage by you're not buying Shifter's Shield, which I think is a really strong support item at the moment. You're not buying Thieves, which I still think is better. It will be better late game. It'll be probably better now. Curious has such a tiny window of when it's effective. I just don't think it's really worth buying at all. And there's a reason we haven't seen it much this season. And I get that it's very, very cheap for the stats that it's providing, but I don't think Bugle Wizard is behind enough that you're like, man, I just need to finish my first item. It doesn't feel like that kind of game yet. So I'm not a big fan of it. I've explained why. People will still build it, and that's okay because it is fun, if nothing else.
Oh, Zexy Zealot there with absolute robbery. Marches up, takes the blue buff away. Now, it is a Cucullin, so it's not the worst thing in the world for Starry there, but still won't be happy with that. And definitely not in what was a 1v3 situation. Now, Mystic Rush off the table, of course, so Zexy Zealot shouldn't be getting too active for a time. That's actually an Astral Barrage coming up for the shield buff, and Tova gets it and takes the life, takes the buff, takes your life, and is going to walk that to the bank. More than happy for that. With that situation is Tova Mesa, and Helenu and Zexy Zealot decide to have a little bit of an interaction, and this is what it's always good to see from a support set. A support that is just in your face, exactly where you don't want them to be. Because as much as Zexy Zealot is messing around with this a bit here, Helenu is happy with this situation. No farm coming out with a Raven, and well, it's very annoying as a jungler to deal with.
Yeah, actually. Love it. Helenu steals those away. And the reality is neither of these two can kill each other. They've both got Shifter's Shield. This is a tanky Bacchus. It's a fairly tanky Raven too. I actually really like this pickup. You know, Shifter's is very, very good for the stats it's giving. And it gives you a lot on these sort of early game gods. That's why I like it in the support role so much, and I do like it on Raven who can orient towards this slightly more hybrid build. But you know, as long as we see all damage items for the rest of the game, I actually think this is a great pickup for Zexy Zealot. But pretty happy Helenu there, and the Fallen Angels, you know, despite not having the best jungle matchup so far, pretty happy with how this game is going. They secure the first Bull Demon. I think that's really important at any level, but it's a gank onto the Rama.
Oh, the Rama goes up to the sky. Can they get down from the sky safely, though? Oh, missed timing there. Zexy Zealot goes early with the Mystic Rush. Doesn't get the kill. Tova Mesa is still alive, and Looney Tunes has committed themselves far too far forward. And that is a 1v2 situation that, again, Tova Mesa has no right to win.
No, absolutely not. But it's just a bit. Ooh, nice little juke, but it won't be enough. Patrocles.
Surely not.
Surely.
Surely not. Griff, given chase, has one more ability.
Please.
Oh, the healing coming up from the Chuck. Too much, and they
No.
will not get the kill.
Wow.
Chuck just has enough about him. That shifter's shield, you know? Low health, extra protections, easy.
Yeah, really unfortunate, actually. I really thought that one would come out for the Mammon Jeep, but it's just fine margins once again. And,
Yep.
I have to say, though, that's a big reason why the Fallen Angels have developed this lead. It's in that dual lane. It's a 3-level lead for Tovamesa, and it really shouldn't have happened that way. Zexy Zealot obviously used that Mystic Rush a little bit too soon, and what it resulted in is the Raven had to duck out pretty early. Looney Tunes went in and ended up tanking the tower. Not enough damage online at this stage of the game. I don't think the star item would have made a difference. We weren't talking about that pickup earlier for the Hatchulin. It wouldn't have made a difference. You were 3 levels down at the time. You need your Raven to hit that first shot, and as soon as they missed that, I think it was time to say, nope, we need to get out of this, otherwise we're both going to die. And in the end, they were lucky to only lose one.
Yeah, recognizing when you are making what was a correct play, right? It was right to get on top of Tovamesa, but then when it's gone wrong, you have to recognize that situation. You got the Ramo, you could have just walked away, but no, ended up committing way more. And under the tower again goes Griff onto Patrocles. This time comes out with a kill onto that Chuck. And this right-hand side of the map, despite Tovamesa doing it all by himself over here, the right-hand side has been dominated by the rest of the Fallen Angels. It seems like everything that Food Fighters had going well for them is just completely collapsed over there. You know, even this 2-0 Raven is now not really seeming too far ahead over the Mammon. And, well, this is exactly what Food Fighters need to do, right? Despite the problems in the left-hand side of the map, they're going to go for this Gold Fury instead. Now, Helenu goes in early, but that might just be enough to prevent this Gold Fury going down. Taking some damage up to the sky goes Tovamesa, because they're in some trouble. They do take down Helenu finally. Tovamesa now in some trouble, getting cornered by Bugle Wizard, and that'll be a kill for Food Fighters. This is going fantastically for them. Griff cornered and taken down as well. It is just Zareth on the Discordia nearby. Hold on. Here comes Starry. He's a cutie on the rotation. Zexy Zealot commits himself forward and has gone down. Fallen Angels lose a few, but they do prevent the Gold Fury.
Yeah, I think it's only because of that rotation from Starry. That's the only thing that salvages what was a pretty poor team fight for them. And actually, a lot of credit, I think, goes to Zexy. Managed to keep this Rama out of the team fight for so long. And the fact that I think Helenu did a great job. Oh, Reaper can fall here, but the ability is off the mark. Where the cooldown's got the Chronos Pendant, there must be something soon. Not quite enough for Zarzif. But Helenu, in that fight, did so well. Bait for so long, had the Horrific Emblem, was clearly very tanky, took out a few ultimates, but there was no rotation coming through. And that's partly because I think Zexy Zealot on this Raven was keeping the Rama out of the fight, and in the end, they weren't able to rotate in and help out on Helenu, which is a shame because I think they did a really good job. But that is why that fight went wrong. Then they started staggering their deaths. The Rama fell, and it only took a rotation and a teleport from Starry on this Cullen to salvage something. But in the end, Food Fighter's pretty happy with that because that was their call to pull that Gold Fury in. That's what I would like to see. Even though not everything's gone right for them, they need to keep playing with that confidence, keep going for these plays.
Yeah, they'd clearly been pressuring the Rama, right? And what you need to do from that is then make sure you get something out of it. And eventually they did. Now, it is a big scrap over this first beacon. Bugle Wizard's been stood here for a while, but the ADCs have rotated in. Now, the Rama already forced to dash away. That gives Q for the chase down from Zexy Zealot, but already the beacon will be going the way of Food Fight. As Zexy Zealot has committed themselves forward, now begins to retreat. Looney Tunes around the corner. Gato Griff with the explosion of corpses, but not quite enough. But Tovamesa again with those snipes. Gets enough done. Gets another onto Looney Tunes, who has been isolated. Now the two fighters on the left-hand side for Food Fighters will be trying to retreat, but it's not going to help them out. There's a rotation coming in from Starry's a cutie. Helmet, though, blown up by Reaper. Reaper takes the brawl. Coming out, Bugle Wizard, no man, a big knock-up, and that's a lot of damage. It's a triple kill coming out. Hold on, this is a quadra kill for Tova Mesa. It's taken a while, but they do not go any further forward. All the while that fight, the Rama was firing off, gets 4 kills in the pocket.
I can't believe they didn't go for that pet. You've got to go for that pet. Starry decided to back out. I think Tova wanted that a little bit more than Starry did, funnily enough. But that's a level 13 Shaq. Oh, that's such a shame. Not to get that penna, but a great play. This Rama is a problem, and it's not like they don't know it, but they've tried to identify Rama as the threat. They've tried to do something about it, but just a bit too much time and space. And again, I think that comes down to prioritization of targets maybe not being quite right. It's tough to call because, again, I don't think that was a bad fight at all for the Food Fighters. I just think there may be just a little bit lacking. The Patrick Rees was a little bit too late once again, and you have to make that decision as a solo laner. And generally, Starry has been a little bit more committed and willing to make those tough calls about when to rotate in. Patrick Rees a little bit more reticent to do so, and that's because the Shaq has been pressured a little bit more and generally not feeling quite as effective at this stage of the game. And as a result, turned up, got a big ultimate, but it was too little, too late, unfortunately. But man, it's great to see this scrapping. The gold lead is basically the same as it was 10 minutes ago. That's really great to see, and credit again to the Food Fighters for staying in this game.
Definitely a close match, but the Food Fighters may be on somewhat of a timer. However, I have received word from above that actually the teams have been swapped around this whole time, Zats. It is the Fallen Angels who are the Order side and Food Fighters who are the Chaos side. So we will try and remember to name them that way from here. But yes, so the Fallen Angels, your Order side, are on a little bit of a timer, right? They have this 4 physical comp, which will eventually start suffering to the multiple defensive items coming out. You can already see Starry's Acuity as the Mystical Mail, the Shifter Shield, and then probably a Glad Shield as well. Yeah. And you might as well just keep going around that tree, right? What's next in the Shield or Breastplate tree, right? Just build that. I'm surprised we actually don't see a Sovereignty coming out yet, because that will be probably the difference maker, right? I think once the Sovereignty comes online, that might be when the mountain becomes too tall for the Fallen Angels to fight against. But for now, there is still some space. But I am maybe a little bit worried that the Food Fighters relax a little bit and take the foot off the gas. They're making a play onto Tova Mesa, but Griff is already nearby, and that is chased away. Zexy Zealot drags the Mammon with him. There's more snipes coming out, and that is the explosion of corpses to seal the deal. Griff now trying to retreat, but there will be a Kuzenbo to get in the way. But look, there's just not enough damage coming onto this pairing of the Food Fighters over here, so they will get out okay, but I'm not sure this fight is quite done yet.
No, and actually that's a lacerate in for the Medusa, but Helenu, they got the damage here.
Big damage.
Helenu could have fallen.
Griff now will be the next to go down, as will Reaper. Starry on the rotation. The solo laners are in. Now the brawl continues on. Zarzeth now in some big danger. Patrocles needs to chase them down, but they do not manage to close the distance. This chart starting to melt because Tova Mesa on this Rama, still full health, full mana, has had a whale of a time in this fight. Patrocles is too low, has to retreat, as does Bugle Wizard, and Looney Tunes finds himself still at a 3-level deficit. Definitely cannot brawl with this Rama. They have the help of a Nene Kappa and a Giant Kappa as well. But Bugle Wizard wants to retreat. Tova Mesa rolling in 1-on-2. The Ijutsu in, but Starry takes the bait forward and goes in. But Zealot is here, and Tova Mesa finally gets taken out. Starry will be able to retreat, as the Fallen Angels call it there. My goodness, a big brawl, and I don't even know who that benefits.
I think overall it's going to favour the Fallen Angels. They've close the gap just that little bit, and again it's all down to Zealot. I do think the Shaq did actually a pretty good job of living as long as he did. Reaper got off a lot of damage. This Hatchiver build is is intriguing. I mean, it's kind of working, I suppose. Was actually able to not trade with Tavamessa, but stay alive long enough to actually get the Raven back into the fight, and that's when they were able to kill the Rama, when Zexizela came back into the fight. And really, that's been a theme for this whole game. What can this Raven do? If this Raven is allowed to get a pick onto a key target, that's generally where the Fallen Angels are winning their fights. Without that, and you know, that's a very big if. I think they're going to struggle a lot more because Cullen is doing a lot of work. No one's really gotten close to killing Starry at this stage. And, you know, combine that with the Rama ult on the back line, that's really tough to deal with. But the fact is, the Food Fighters, apart from those two, you know, the Mammon is struggling a little bit. I think Zarzif, the damage is okay, but it's not quite consistent. Geogriff getting pressured out, probably going to fall. Big stun.
Oh, big stun. Might actually be enough to get away. There is the Mystic Rush, though, and that will seal the fate. But there is a rotation in from Starry just behind. Do they have the damage to take out anyone? Not quite yet, but it'll be too little for them, I think, because it's just really so hard to do that much damage. It does get pushed under the tower. That's one way to dish out damage on. It's very technical Cullen, but Bugle Wizard instead is the one taking the brunt of all the damage. This tier 2 tower in mid under pressure because Tova Mesa has made the rotation all the way over. Now, the Food Fighters able to do whatever they want. They can go look at this Pyromancer if they want. It's still a 4 versus 4 overall, but Looney Tunes so far behind this Rama just needs time to farm.
Yeah, and actually, this is the right decision, I think. You're making the most of your now level 20 Rama. And as you know, we talked about the backline, we talked about the shred that's coming through. The difference between the two teams is massive now. This is an interesting trade, and I think it's going to go successfully for Fallen Angels. That's actually a really nice pickup. But there'll be a fight on the back of it.
Fight comes in, big snipes coming through, hitting both the backliners, but the gap is just too far for the rest of the Food Fighters to close. But still, huge damage coming out from Tova Mesa. But finally, Starry takes a spill. This very tanky Cullen, you know, I was wondering where the damage was going to come from the Fallen Angels to take them down. But Reaper on this Medusa and Looney Tunes, despite being behind, 2 ADCs is 2 ADCs. It still really hurts when you take a lot of damage. And, you know, no mid-Guardian mail out just yet, no Hide of the Nemean Lion. This Cullen is tanky, but not really too much of a threat.
And as we mentioned at the start, very good in a 1v1 situation, but a nice Yaji to avoid the ultimate. Geogriff's still going.
Oh, the Mammon is just not having it right now. Helenu falls down as well. Looney Tunes is on a killing spree, and now in a 3 versus 5 situation, the Fallen Angels decide they are going to pull this Fire Giant. They've been on the back foot this whole time and still down in gold, but this Fire Giant should be theirs.
Yeah, I don't think there's going to be any way to contest this. And again, it's the 2 players that are on the map. Well, Zaza have turned up actually, but very low health bars. They're the only ones alive for the Food Fighters because Geogriff keeps taking spills. Helenu doesn't feel particularly effective on this Bacchus, hasn't actually been farming as well as Bugle Wizard. Maybe Caramir's Curus has something to do with that. But, yeah, this Bacchus just doesn't feel effective. And to be fair, it's not the tankiest build we've seen. I think Shifters is fine, but after that, you know, there's no proper support item for me. You know, there's no Thebes, there's no Spirit Robe, which I think is a great support item at the moment. You're not as tanky as you'd like, and while you might be doing a little bit more damage, yeah, the end result is you're not able to tank enough. You're not able to take as much damage. But it's a massive fight going on, and Tova Mesa has already fallen. This is huge.
Tova Mesa down and left, fighting right though. Now edging away, and Fallen Angels and Helenu goes down. They are trading out. Patrocles super low and does go down. Zazith on a double kill already. Griff tries to make something happen, but does go down to Reaper. These trades are okay though for Food Fighters. You want to be taking these Fire Giant buffs off the table, and with only losing that tier 1 tower in right, you're kind of okay with how this has gone. Now, of course, on the left-hand side, we did see Zexy Zealot take a 1v1 against Tova Mesa, gets the beads out from him, does push all the way up to this tier 2 tower as well. So it is a win overall for the Fallen Angels, but it's not been an easy win, and I think that comes down to just how much of a deficit they were fighting into initially.
Yes, it's worth remembering that although it feels like it was very much with the Fallen Angels, it felt like they could go on and get something with it, but actually they were still behind in gold at that point. I think they're now slightly ahead, but again, it was only a marginal success because of that Raven getting that solo kill onto the Rama and taking that tower. But actually, on the flip side, you'd say, well, the fact that the Raven wasn't in that team fight, it made it more scrappy, and it made it a better fight for the food fighters. So yeah, as we say, getting trades when the enemy team has got Fire Giant, that's always worth it at this stage of the game. You're happy with that, and as a result, it doesn't feel like anyone's really got the edge. No one's really got any momentum in these fights because, as soon as one player seems to pick up get ahead of steam, they die and they get caught out. So no one's been able to really get a firm grip on this game. And as a result, we're going to see lots more scrappy fighting. But at the moment, that's a massive ult from
Gets two immediately, and now it has to be danger stations for food fighters. They have to retreat because the last fight here could be the end of the game. Patrocles going in deep, doesn't manage to kill anyone up, but Zexy Zealot again, blinking in, re-engaging, doesn't quite have the damage they need. This tier 2 tower, an obstacle in the way, but no longer, and Helenu shall fall. It is 5 versus 2 still. 3 members of Fallen Angels with the Fire Giant buff. Do they go for the end, or do they play it safe? They're going to look at the end. It is just Grip and Starry nearby into the base already. Go the Fallen Angels. Starry has to retreat too low and cannot retreat. Griff has nothing they can do about this. No ultimate to work with. Just taking so much damage. The Titan is low, and the Titan goes down in 24 minutes. Fallen Angels take game number 1.
What an earth happened? The food fighters, it seemed like they were in control for a large portion of that game. This Rama was causing so many problems. Cullen seemed unkillable at one point, but I think at the end their team comp, they never really got a chance to use it because they were always dying before the team fight ever actually happened.
Yes.
And, I favoured their team fight at the start of the game. I stand by that. I think if they'd ever grouped as 5 properly, they'd have had a much better chance. But as it stood in that game, even in that last fight in the mid lane where Zexy Zealot got an enormous amount of damage from that ultimate, that the Mystic Rush was huge and picked up 2 kills within seconds of each other. That was a big turning point. The fact is, not everyone was present for that fight, and that is a big problem because they underestimated their ability to just end the game from that point. Just getting a couple of kills, and they got a third one soon after that. With double ADC, doesn't matter what the Hatchman's building, they will be able to end in that situation.
Yep.
Quite a few problems, I think, and they need to be addressed. I think a few of the picks need to change. But actually, most importantly, it comes down to you need to fight together because that never really happened at all that game.
Yep, definitely didn't feel like that's how it went. But the good news is that it is not over for anyone just yet. We will have at least one more game to see. So let's see if they can turn it around or if this will be a 2-0 set. Do not go anywhere. We will be right back. And we are right back in, everybody, with this game number 2 between Food Fighters and Fallen Angels. It was Fallen Angels who came in the victors in that first game, but it seemed like Food Fighters had most of the control in that game. That's what went wrong.
I just think, we mentioned it at the end of the last game. It doesn't really come down to comp. It doesn't come down to the gods you pick. It comes down to playing as a team. And there's no doubting that they're a good team. That they've got a good record. They play together clearly. Some of their plays were really, really good, but a lot of it was kind of individual plays. And actually, when it came to those team fights, we saw fairly early around Gold Fury, they were just a bit too split up. You had Starry diving the backline solo, and there was no real follow up coming out. I think the mid laner and the support, they were on different pages. I think that comes down to who's communicating, who's making the key calls, who's calling the targets. It's either everyone is doing that or no one's doing that. And what we need to see is just them sharpen up a little bit, focus up on who they want to target, what they need to do when they're getting pressured. Do you run to help the back line, or do you continue to try and zone their front line, if you're a solo laner? Lots to think about, but I think they need to reset, go again. I like that they're taking this Medusa once again. Maybe a few adjustments in the jungle picks, perhaps, but nothing to panic about just yet.
Yeah, one thing I'm noticing there is in the entirety of the bans phase, the only god that Food Fighters seem to identify as a problem they want to get rid of is actually the Kuzumbo, which does surprise me a little bit. It might just be the Canadian's Curious fear factor coming in there, But I do like taking away the Medusa as well, first pick, because it works as a pseudo ban, right? It is still a strong god, works as a mid laner. You can, like we discussed in the first game, you can flex it over to the ADC role if you chose to, but I can see why you'd pretty much lock it into that mid lane role, right? It was very strong, didn't feel like a weakness, and also seemed to pick up a bit of the slack that the Hachiman was maybe leaving out when, in that early phase, the Hachiman quite down his build. I think 1 in 4 at one point was Looney Tunes, so they still had that innate basic attack damage from the Medusa to allow them to pull these gold furies. They took one quite quickly as well when they had an opportunity to. So just kept the gold ticking over, kept the power in the pocket, and of course in the end was able to win out that game. But a bit of a switcheroo going on in this game, because while the Medusa has gone the way of Food Fighters, this time Fallen Angels have taken the Kukulin and the Hachiman. A big mix-up, though, is coming with the Artio and Naja combination here. Do you think this Artio in particular, Zat, will be going support, or do you think they'll be heading to the solo lane?
I think it's likely to be a support. I do think Artio is in a decent spot, particularly in that support role. It's okay. I think it's a little bit early. Really, the big fear factor of an Artio is the cripples, right?
Yes.
The cripple field that you can bring out, and it lasts for a long time. And with these kind of supports, particularly that we saw last game, particularly that Kuzuma, I think you can kind of walk down an ADC. Maybe you won't have the damage to kill them straight up, but the ability to just keep them busy with your constant CC, your cripples, and healing as well. I do like the pickup. I like the fact that they've got 2 very easy to access stuns as well, and that's really powerful into the Lancelot. I think that's super important, and I kind of like that they've just scrapped game 1 and they've taken a top pick, and now they're going to something completely different. And I actually think this will suit them really, really well, because I think for Gatorgriff, having this, what I presume is going to be this Naja, it's a completely different playstyle to the Mamraji, and it actually should suit a little better, I think.
Yeah, the Marmon, of course, didn't work too much, but when you're picking a Marmon, what you're trying to do is be that guy who goes in late to a team fight, sweeps up some kills, and then gets out if you can. Whereas Naja, like you say, completely different style, wants to be the one creating, making things happen. If you do die as a Naja, not such a big deal as long as you got the rest of your kit off. And what you're always looking for as a Naja is some big follow-up behind you, right? When you land with that
Yes.
ultimate, what is hitting them? And they actually don't have a classic mage, but they do still have that Petrify from the Medusa. So I do like the way that Food Fighters are playing around their comp still, right? You're still making use of what you do have, even if it's not quite a traditional pickup. But speaking, Zats, of a non-traditional pickup, we do have a new Wa coming out this time for Fallen Angels. Do you see any value in this god in the current meta?
I do. I actually think she's sneakily pretty good. It helps a lot that obviously we had the big 9.5 change. Everyone's got a lot less health. That means that New ult is just better than it was before
Yep.
because you can't miss it. I also think that the way mid builds are at the moment, that there's quite a lot of options. I think Noir can really make the most of these slightly different builds. You know, you can go into a more cooldown based build, which we saw from the Discordia last game. I think that can work well for you. You can also very easily stack any of the multitude of stacking items that you pick up in the mid lane. Noir's very good at that. She's actually got very safe wave clear. The ability to jump out of the fight for a very long time is going to help you. She's also super good at killing frontline. Whoever it is that's diving code, it looks like it is going to be an RTO solo. I think Noor Hachi is going to be damn near impossible to dive for especially for this RTO. You don't really care about what she does because as long as you get the minion stun onto that RTO, which also those minions do take away protections as well, you're going to get absolutely minced by that combo. And I really like what they've drafted so far here.
Yeah, definitely a lot of potential in both drafts, but Fallen Angels does seem to have that little bit of X factor, right? That little bit of potential to just obliterate a team fight. And now combining that with an Ares as well to maybe get a little bit of beads pressure coming out. You now can't just burn your beads on a Hachiman stun or a Nuwa stun because you have to be concerned about what that Ares is going to do. Now, there is a hell of a lot of setup on the side of the food fight this year. Pretty much every god in the game does a good job of setting up for someone else, but can they capitalize on that is maybe where I'd be a little bit concerned, right? If Archer's diving the backline, if getting some stuns and little bits of damage off and some CC, and Ganesh is coming in and locking them in the Dharmic pillars and silencing them, but where is the damage and where is it going to come from? That is what we need to see from food fighters. I just wonder if they've got it in them. What do you think, Zats? Do you think there's enough damage in this pack to get it done?
No, I don't think there is, and it's not that Medusa don't do damage. I just don't think it's very easy for them to follow up because there's no way they'll any space to follow up on that Naja ult, for example. It's a big concern for me. I really don't like this Ganesh pick. It does nothing into Lancelot. Lancelot doesn't care about silences. There's going to be Cullen as well. Ares is going to be ulting people out of position. There's no way that you're going to be able to create enough space for this double ADC backline to really ever get any applicable damage off. And the fact that the Fallen Angels now have the Cullen, that makes it even worse for you. I'm more concerned about this going into game number 2.
Well, one thing we can say is that you were concerned about them, the Fallen Angels in the first game. And, well, it didn't go that way. We were completely wrong on that one. And it could be that we are completely wrong again and we end up heading to a game 3. It's a bit hard to call at the moment because, where the comps look so reliable, you'd think it should be a simple game, right? But Smite is anything but played on paper, right? It always seems to be there's just that little bit of magic, that little misstep from one person or the other, and it can really blow a game wide open. But
absolutely,
for the game to be wide open, someone needs to be on the front foot, should we say? Is there any team in particular that you think should be the ones looking to be on the front foot here?
I mean, I think food fighters should try, and I think there is potential there in the jungle matchup to be successful. I think they need to keep this Lancelot down and out of the game early, and a lot of that will depend on the performance of Gator Griff and Zarzith. Now you've got the Medusa in your hands, that 2v2 is going to be a lot better. but if you kind of just let it spiral out of control and give Zealot a bit too much time in that jungle role, I think we'll just have the same outcome, if not a quicker outcome for the Fallen Angels, because I just think their comp is better, and there's too much for the Food Fighters that needs to be right for them to have success.
Well, we do now head on into game number 2 between the Food Fighters and Fallen Angels. And of course, Food Fighters need this game to keep themselves in this set. Like we said earlier, both teams right now, week 5 of the season, are 3-1. It's a good scoreline to be at, but 4-1 looks a hell of a lot better than 3-2. So this is almost the make and break for the rest of your season to really define where you are and where you're going to end up. Now, it is not the same sort of timer that we saw previously as hold on, Fallen Angels getting a little bit aggressive early on here. I'm noticing that Looney Tunes has again gone for this Warrior's Axe start. The beads come out because those alluring spirits just that little bit too alluring. And, well, now we're seeing the pressure being in favor of the Ganesh Dan Zabura, which is maybe not how you would expect this to go. Whoa, that is an early gank. That is a cringiest of cringe ganks, but it gets a first blood for Food Fighters.
And that's actually really what you need to see from Gato Griff. Just wipe that game 1 out of your mind and go and do a cringe gank on solo lane. Nothing better to get your confidence up, to get the momentum rolling. You take out the Cullen nice and early. That's going to give RTO a little bit of leeway. Not a lot. I think you actually need a second kill to negate that teleport to really put this Cullen into trouble. But at the moment, it's just enough breathing space for Starry on this RTO, who I think is gonna need it. You know, there's lots of fight potential for an RTO. There's you know, good wave clear, good sustain, lots of damage coming out. You've got more abilities than Cullen does at this stage, even though the Cullen can transform. And Gato Griff not letting up on the pace, is perhaps looking for another gank, or at the very least pressure on this Jewish side. But hang on, there's a gank response in the solo lane, and everything we just talked about has been negated because now Starry has been ganked and doesn't have the teleport, and that means that Patrocles is now firmly in control of this lane.
Yeah, already the momentum swings. The pendulum goes the complete other direction. You called for a second gank, Zetson. Well, you got it, but maybe not exactly what Starry would have wanted there. But good reaction, I think, from the Fallen Angels there. It wasn't a cringe gank or anything. It was a well-timed gank that time. And I think maybe Starry just not aware of the possibility, right? Sometimes it feels like you made a good play, but you're not alert to what the reaction could be. So Food Fighters definitely need to wake up to that a little bit. One person I do have a bit of concern for is actually Bugle Wizard on this Ares. I'm noticing the entire enemy team with a set of purification beads is hold that thought. Patrocles might be in a little bit of danger. They have the safety of the tower. There's the ring bounce coming through, but the minions take some of the ring tosses, and that will be that second gank. Now Gato Griff does fall down, but Starry needed that to get some pressure relieved and does get out alive. How does the pendulum look now?
About the same, actually. I think it would have been a lot worse had Gato Griff not gotten that kill. I don't mind trading it at this point. Again, it's just being proactive, isn't it? And that's something that you have to do in this scenario, but I really like it. Good stun, Don Vesna in trouble.
In some trouble, gets into the leaves and will be safe for the time being. Looney Tunes, though, not giving up. Still firing off those shots. Relentless action over in this dual lane, but actually nobody falling down still. It's one of those dual lane matchups that could potentially swing either way. It's quite an aggressive ADC on the side of Food Fighters, but a defensive support on the side of Food Fighters, and the complete opposite on the side of the Fallen Angel. So one god getting the upper hand quickly could make a big difference. Now there is a sneaky rotation coming in from Zexy Zealot, and there is nothing the Food Fighters knew about it, but that's a good placement of the alluring spirits. Tovamasa does not get out alive. Bugle Wizard will take that down. All of a sudden, this left side of the map looks very good for Fallen Angels, but Griff is in. Fight going on. Patrocles gets a solo kill. Zexy Zealot now 1-on-2, needs some help, goes taken to the sky and will go down. But after the fact, is there anything the dual lane can do? No, because Zazef is on the scene, and Bugle Wizard blown up, taken out. A sash from Griff, needs one more shot, shall get it. A triple kill for Griff, and that is already a big swing in the momentum.
Massive, and perfectly timed as well. Managed to defend the purple buff, get a triple kill onto this Naja, who's now 5-1, and you get to invade all their camps as well. Brilliant timing from them, and it's such a marked difference from game number 1. The impact that Gator Griff is able to have, and I think that's just playing a god that, there's no saying whether, Gator's more comfortable on this pick, but it certainly looks that way. It just seems to suit the play style. It is about setup, but it's also about playmaking, and a lot more than Maman is able to do now. A bit of a scrap going on here, but Fallen Angels surely are pretty high up here.
Reaper in danger. Oh, never mind. Where did Starry is a cutie go? Doesn't matter. They are dead. And that is 2 members of Food Fighters who are dead. Fallen Angels there look to be the ones in danger, but the ambulance instead called for the RDO. And I mean, that's just what Nuwa can do, I guess.
I'm staggered. I thought Starry had a full health bar. I could have been wrong. Nice combo onto Reaper, who knocks off.
Reaper 10 HP, but 9 more than they need. Griff has to retreat. Zartan will clean that one up. Gets the Petrify out onto Patrocles, actually. A double kill for Zartan. And now Zexy Zealot has to try and retreat, but there is nowhere that they can go. No mana to work with. A triple kill for Zartan. What is it with these players and getting multi-kills? The mid lane is showing up big.
Yeah, that's much more than we saw from the entire first game on this Discordia, and that's the power that I think this Medusa has. I love this early Jotun's Wrath pickup. You're able to have so much more presence than a Nuar is at this stage of the game. It didn't help that the Nuar died, of course, but you're always gonna favour the Food Fighters in those kind of fights, and the only real problem for them so far is this Artio, but other than that, it's all really going well for them. You're staying ahead of this Lancelot. You're continuing to put out good pressure on this Naja. In the mid, there's not much to call between them, but certainly this Medusa has more damage and therefore more impact at this stage of the game than a Nuar does. Not taking any away from Reaper's performance so far. And to be fair, the Ganesh has looked really strong at this stage of the game. Messer needs to be careful, and it's not the best Dharmic Pillars, and the damage. The Warrior's Axe proc, not quite enough to take down the Danzaburg.
Yeah, Messer feeling confidence, of course, after that Game 1 performance, despite taking the loss, but you're in a different situation now, Danzaburg as well. If you're going to be taking those 1v1s, you need to be connecting with those abilities, because gods like Hachiman can just do that trading battle a little bit better. If there's no alluring spirits on the table, if they're not being dizzied by the shotgun blast of money bags coming out. Hold on, a lot of danger coming for Griff, who has used the ultimate to take the Ares to the sky, but now we'll just be feeling the wrath of everyone else. Now Griff gets pulled away from Zexy Zealot, and now might be able to retreat. The flames are good, and the horse is even better. Helenu now finds himself in a tough spot, does dash in. Google Wizard needs to retreat because Zazath is here. Tova Mesa as well goes in with the rocket, does peel for the support, does Tova Mesa, but Zazath now needs to be the one getting out. But Fallen Angels somehow only take down Griff in that whole exchange. They do trade out their support, but it could have looked a lot better for them.
Yeah, it's actually not too bad at all. I thought Griff had gone a little bit far. Naja ulting the Ares. That is a Cannoneer's Curious Ares. That's a very, very tanky boy at this stage of the game. And, had enemies coming in, Tova Mesa may well have overstepped the mark here, but going for the trade and takes it.
Just taking the trade, and now doesn't care what happens next. We'll be brawling out with Zexy Zealot. There was a new ult as well, just to seal their fate. But trading out equally there is something that Looney Tunes definitely did not want to happen. Zexy Zealot falls down in the left side, though stuck around a touch too long. Zazath on this Medusa, so active for a mid lane of 5-0 right now that you can't say it hasn't been working.
It's a completely different switch up in style, and you could say that about multiple players. I think Helenu looks a lot more comfortable on this Ganesh. It feels like they're putting up a better fight of it, and that's because they're more comfortable in what they're trying to do with the picks that they've got. I really like what I'm seeing. I'm still concerned about how well their comp is going to do late game, and the fact is that the Fallen Angels still have a lot going for them. The later this game goes, I think the more it's going to favour them. They're barely behind at all. Was it 400 gold, if that? And the fact is, Patroclus hasn't been in any of his fights yet. Patroclus, we know, likes to farm up a little bit more, doesn't like to rotate as much, and as a result does have a 2-level lead over Starry, and this Artio is going to be a sticking point, I think. It's going to be a problem, and there's a gank coming through. But at the moment, it's going to be a 2v2.
It's a 2-on-2. Starry, though, fallen very low early on. Nice little bit of healing keeps them alive for a moment. Up to the sky goes Griff with Zexy Zealot, and Starry shall fall down. But here's Zazeth again, along with Helenu. And now Patroclus might be the target. Does get caught by the Ohm, but it's not enough damage just yet. Here comes Bugle Wizard with a no escape on 3. Pulls in 2, and Patroclus shall get out alive. And it is just Food Fighters having to retreat. No more for them to find. It took a while. It only Starry falls down. Big brawl in the solo lane, but still, Fallen Angels come out on top.
Yeah, and that's more worrying for this Artio. I think, you know, obviously the lane hasn't gone well. I think the fact that you have beads instead of teleport is clearly proven to be a problem, because I don't think the beads have actually been used to effect that I've noticed. So, you know, there's the question as to why you buy them. Maybe it was a mistake, actually. But you know, that's a real sticking point, and unfortunately a lot of the good work that the Food Fighters are doing, you know, I think Griff is obviously having a great game, Zarzek is having a great game, but you are still very, very worried about their late game fight potential. But lots of pressure coming out to Bugle Wizard, who will fall. Now, I don't know about if they can do the same to Patroclus, but they might just turn it into a Bullbeam instead.
Cullen just too tanky for anyone to really want to commit to there, and Griff actually has to use the purification beads and retreat. But Bugle there, feeling the full force of being an Ares, you can just get isolated and killed off sometimes. So Food Fighters reacting well, despite losing some key matchups across the board, and in fact Zarzeth actually being punished a little bit for rotating well, but maybe a bit too much now, because Reaper has taken the tier 1 tower. It's just a little bit of gold down, maybe half a level down as well, and it's not been so bad. And now actually some space created for Fallen Angels to look at this gold queue. Now Food Fighters fully aware of this, are rotating over in force in the 3 versus 4 situation. They might look to pull the objective, but Bugle Wizard dishing out the damage onto Helenu, who does have to use that Ohm early, and actually might get pulled in here, does get dragged. But is there any follow-up? The Dark Pulse going, and there is the follow-up. Reaper deals out the damage. Zexy Zealot, 1 versus 2. Wow. Never mind, has Reaper's backup. That is another kill for this new Arn. A big shutdown onto this Medusa. Now Griff and Zexy Zealot brawl it out while the Gold Fury goes down. Into the tower goes Zexy Zealot, takes him down from the Windfire Wheels, and boom! There is Tovanessa to clean up a kill, but still, the objective goes the way of Fallen Angels.
Yeah, it's a good pickup actually to get Zexy Zealot. It was important that you did that, and I think they knew they were gonna lose that Gold Fury. I think it was really nicely played from Gator Griff. Did very well to avoid the knockup from the Lancelot with the ultimate, and actually Zealot ended up taking a tower shot as well. It was actually perfectly timed. I really enjoyed that, but you know, Zealot's happy with that. You've traded your life. Maybe you didn't need to, but you confirmed Gold Fury for the Fallen Angels, and that's actually given them the biggest lead we've seen so far in this game 2, that is. I am still concerned. I think, you know, Fallen Angels, they know that this needs to be a slightly longer, more drawn-out game. They need to slow the pace down, and if anything, they've actually been speeding it up by pressuring out. But Bugle Wizard in a bit of trouble here.
Oh, big tough spot. There's the Petrifying 2, and Patroclus actually might fall down as well. Starry, the one to pick up that kill, a much-needed kill for this Artio. And again, the Medusa rotation just so impactful in this game. It makes you wonder why Reaper wasn't doing the same thing. Now Tova and Looney Tunes take a 1v1. Griff is there to ruin it, but Tova Mesa will pick up that kill. Kills are flying absolutely everywhere, but this game is still very much even.
It's bizarre, isn't it? I think the problem for the Fallen Angels is they haven't really been grouping at the correct time, and you know, you've mentioned the rotations coming out from Zarzeth. Zarzeth is obviously quite a bit behind Reaper, who I think correctly has chosen to stay in lane, farm up, and just fire off the ults when necessary. And there's a massive fight going on. Reaper is low, but health bars are dropping.
Reaper's low, Griff can't connect, does get stunned out and does fall down. Now Reaper is still very low health, but sorry, blown up with that combo, and now the R2 just has to retreat, gets the stun, gets caught by a cripple, gives out a cripple of their own, but that is enough. It looked like there, Food Fight is getting aggressive, but taking a huge punishment for it.
Every time I think one of these teams has an advantage, they throw it away by just splitting up and taking interesting choice of fights, let's say. It's just odd decision making. Again, the pendulum swings back to the Fallen Angels. The Gold Lead has actually gotten bigger now, and you know, despite there's a ult going in, the beats comes out from Looney Tunes, but actually looking to take this.
Looney Tunes wants the fight, surely should be thinking of getting out, but doesn't have the mounted archery to do it. Does have to sustain through this fight just a little bit longer, needs to get on those slippery shoes, does use the Aegis Amulet. How long until the ultimate? It's too long for Looney Tunes, and they do go down. Now the Pyromancer at the same time, I think actually got stolen there by Halanu. It looks like that did go the way of Food Fighters, and now it's a 4-on-4 on this right-hand side. Direct Pill's gun was out, up to the sky goes one, and does go down. Reaper needed to be taken off early for the Food Fighters to win this fight. Now Patrocles in a little bit of danger. Starry more than happy to run forward. Bugle gets abandoned and left for dead, and now the map is wide open on this right-hand side. Now there is no Denzaburo just yet, so that does mean the Food Fighters don't pull the Fire Giant, but they've taken a good fight, and they themselves now find themselves in the ascendancy.
Yeah, that was good. That was good. It was really important to take out Reaper. That is the priority target, and didn't even get a chance to use that ultimate. Much of that is down to Gato Griff getting the cooldowns onto Reaper and not allowing any counterplay. And that is absolutely crucial. I think they had good timing on the relics for this new era as well. They are playing more as a team, and while I'm still concerned about some aspects of their comp, it is working because they are using their comp, whereas Fallen Angels are still a little bit split up. It's not helped that Looney Tunes took a tumble. I think this Ares is not really doing anything, and I think there are questions as to why it's in the draft in the first place. It's really struggling to have an impact. There's not many good targets to cripple. There's not much to follow up on if you do get a big ultimate, and there's not much beads burned to make use of that ultimate. So that's a bit of a concern for me. Patrocles has started falling now, and this is a theme of the last game. Despite having a 2-level lead, this unkillable Cucullin is not unkillable when you're having to deal with 4 people in your face. You just can't do that. No one can do that, and that's a big problem. Zella has lost the horse and has to use the ultimate, but it's follow-up from Gato Griff. Does get the beats as well.
But just had another one in the back pocket, and now surely this Lancelot will be going down. Okay, back on the horse. Actually, the stun doesn't connect from one, but that will be that. However, Gold Fury has been pulled this whole time. It's very low. Sergeant no ult. Helenu wants to go for the steal, drops the Dharmic Pill as it gets low, and the Fallen Angels do manage to secure it. But now the chase down coming in from the Food Fighters. The stun comes out. Bugle Wizard out of this fight first, going all the way in with the rocket onto Reaper again. This Nuwa out of this fight before they can really impact it. And now Looney Tunes on a cartoon chase all the way back to the tier 2 in mid lane, and the map again wide open in favor of Food Fighters. This time though, do they pull the Fire Giant?
I think they have a strong case for it. They took down 3 really important targets. I think it was the right idea to take that Gold Fury, but again, it just took a little bit too long. I think, again, credit goes to Helenu for just slowing them down a little bit. Fallen Angels actually slowed their DPS down when Helenu turned up, and those 3-4 seconds were all you needed to allow the rest of the Food Fighters to charge on in, and they picked up a whole host of kills after that. Yeah, it's turned very much in the Food Fighters' favour, and yet despite that, they're still behind in gold. Okay, they're actually about dead even now. It's a bizarre game because it feels like no one is taking momentum at any one time, but the gold lead always seems to be in favour of the Fallen Angels. And I think, to be fair, I think their map play is generally a little bit better. They're a little bit more efficient in how they're farming their lanes and in how they're taking out the jungle. And as a result, they still got a big level lead in that solo lane, but they're also really behind in duo. So it's really hard to call, and Tova Mesa again feeling very confident to go for this 1v1. Actually, there is backup on the way as well. Looney Tunes needs to ult out.
And the ult out does finally decide to do that, but Tova Mesa is just going to ult in instead. There's the Uproarious Rocket connects. The beads get used, but it doesn't make a difference. Now the Hachiman's off the table. What does the follow-up look like? The Ares pops the ult, but that's it. There's nothing left. It's just the two frontliners of Fallen Angels here. Now Zazith has taken a spill in the mid lane. Patrocles is doing a good job of staying alive for a time. They're going to transform, but can they get out? The Ohm is just too much for them to deal with. Dashing right into a cripple, but here comes Zexy Zealot. Tova Mesa down from this fight. A double kill for the Lancelot, and now here's Reaper full health and a lot of space to work with. Can they catch up though? The distance could be hard for them to close. Zexy Zealot tries to get the stun, but there's the blink from Griff over the wall. Now still the Fallen Angels chase forward. They should get this tier 1 tower. The Dynamic Pillars comes out from Helenu. Still a bit of a brawl potentially brewing here, and it looks like Food Fighters have just realized they have to get out. They are trying to retreat. Zexy Zealot making that horse go faster like the last couple of legs of the Grand National, but cannot get the chase down done. Looks like the Food Fighters will be safe, but could have potentially been a lot worse.
And Zexy Zealot is the savior of this game so far. Helenu getting very low, and actually they've stuck around so long that we're going to get our second team fight. You ready, Judas? It's happening again.
Oh, I'm ready, and Grip is not ready. They thought they could take an engagement, but now are suffering. The Petrify comes out and doesn't do enough. The Medusa trying to retreat. Zazith just already taken one spill in this fight, doesn't want to take another. Reaper somehow used their entire mana bar through this fight and now has nothing left to work with. Here is an uproarious rocket from Tova Mesa. Bugle Wizard goes down. Zexy Zealot shall follow them, and Reaper being run down by Starry is a cutie over here, trying to use the teleporter just to cause some chaos. Does not succeed, and now the Food Fighters make their own way all the way across the map and make eyes at this fire giant.
And the fact is that two of the Fallen Angels that weren't in that fight are already here. It's like they knew they were going to lose the fight and have to defend Fire Giant. But actually, this might end up being a 2v2. This is not bad at all for them, but the problem is backup is on the way. This Medusa is en route, and they should probably back out of this now.
Yeah, Patrocles has created some space, and the Fire Giant is now back to full HP. We're only 21 minutes into this game, but it's felt a lot longer, but it's still, of course, not an enhanced Fire Giant. This is just a regular old Fire Giant, so how much are Fallen Angels willing to commit for this? Food Fighters more than happy to commit for this. They are going to go for this objective, but it's not been particularly fast so far. Bugle Wizard and Patrocles all in. The Fire Giant falling very low. The Dark Pillars come out, and the Food Fighters do secure the objective, and the fight after the fact is still going in their favor. Patrocles and Bugle Wizard eliminated in the blink of an eye. The front line off the table. Looney Tunes has no one to defend them, and now they're in some danger. Are the Fallen Angels? Zexy Zealot with a 4-man knockup does manage to kill one, cannot get the next, however, due to the alluring spirits, and the Food Fighters take the objective and all of the fight afterwards.
Madness, absolute madness. Oh, Reaper really shouldn't get caught out here, but probably will. That's a full deicide for the Food Fighters, and they only lost Helenu. I don't think they can end it. There's too many towers. It's a little bit too early, but they've got Bugle Wizard up now. Respawn times are not exactly favouring the Fallen Angels here. I think they'll play it safe. This is the correct call. They've taken one of the birds down. They can clean up these last tier 2 towers. Just a massive swing for them, and that all came from what felt like an okay situation for the Fallen Angels. They were fighting back, and they were giving Zexy Zealot the chance to bail them out a little bit, but the fact is you're asking a lot of this Lancelot, and that there's not much else in the way of help. This Lancelot's done nothing wrong, really good plays, but I just don't think that the comp is actually working for them, and the problem is it's complete opposite from game number 1. The Fallen Angels are not grouping up correctly. Reaper and Looney Tunes need to be trying to take down this RTO together, and they have the tools to do that. The problem is Cullen isn't able to make enough space. Zealot really isn't able to sort of kite the backline. Zealot is trying to sort of come into the fight a little bit later and clean out kills, which is clearly working, but the problem is you're not able to buy enough time without that Lancelot, because this Ares it's kind of not doing anything. You know, you're not getting value from these ultimates. You may well be getting relics, you may well be getting the beads from those no escapes, but no one is able to punish that. You know, there's no massive beads burn, or you know, there's no Naja to make the most of the lack of beads, and that's proving to be a real big problem here. And I think it only really works actually when you're playing slightly further back, and that's what we need to see from Bugle Wizard. You actually need to play more in your backline and try and help them deal with this Artio, who is proving to be quite a menace. But I think more importantly, you have to take down Gator Griff, because I think this Naja is doing a little bit too much work, buying too much time, and it's allowing Xarthas and Tova Mesa to just dive the backline for free. There's a lot not going for the Fallen Angels here. Again, they're correctly not really putting up a fight for these tier 2 towers. This is a pretty significant deficit they've got to fight into. The way back in is they've got to find a use for this Ares. And honestly, I'm really not sure what that is at the current stage. Probably the best case scenario is get Ares levels, get Ares items, and hope that you can tank enough and have enough cooldown reduction in the build to be useful.
Well, there is a bit of time here now for the Fallen Angels to try to scrape whatever they can back together. I don't believe the Food Fighters will re-engage here, so it all depends on what they can buy in this time, but I do wonder how much space the Food Fighters are really going to give them.
Yeah, absolutely, and they shouldn't let up of the gas at all. They do need to be cautious, though, because I think we saw a little bit in the early game what this new arc could do to a Ina. We haven't seen it enough, certainly come later game, and then I think that's because Bugle Wizard needs to sit in that backline and really peel is the wrong word for an Ares, but you have to help out your backline as much as possible. Once you take down that Artio, things will get a lot easier, because again, Tova Mesa is ulting in very, very aggressively, and if you're able to take down someone before that happens, then you might have a better time. But at the moment, Food Fighters are just, all the fights are on their terms. They're the ones being aggressive. They're the ones ulting in first and not really getting punished for it, because the numbers will favour them, because they're getting early picks. And that's what the Fallen Angels need to be very wary of here. And as you said, Food Fighters, they shouldn't change anything. They should keep being this aggressive. There's no time for caution in this kind of game. Keep going, keep pushing, because that's what brought you success so far.
Well, that is that perfect situation for Food Fighters. The Fire Giant is about to come up, but the Mid Phoenix has also come up. That is the Purification Beads down for Looney Tunes now for this next big fight. So the Hatchy Man going to struggle to make an entrance. Star is creating some space. Fire Giant already half HP. There's not a lot
not giving it up.
Fallen Angels can do, but they are certainly not going to give up. Try telling them that. In goes Patrocles. There comes the knock of the Food Fighters. Do get the objective. How does it look after Tova Mesa is low? Patrocles takes him down. Reaper gets the first kill and gets the ult off as well. Gruff now on the retreat. The rundown from Fallen Angels is fantastic. Grip off the map. Zaz is fighting back, but Helenu shall fall as well. Panic stations for Food Fighters. They need to stay alive. They need to stay in this. Zazith gets another fight, but cannot retreat any further. It is just Starry is a cutie left alive, has the Fire Giant, but can do no more. Now the Fallen Angels need to get one of these towers down, one of these Phoenixes down. They have Looney Tunes, they have Reaper, but it is so hard to get this organized. It seems like the Food Fighters shall survive, but that was about as close as it gets.
Wow. And to be fair to the Food Fighters, to the Fallen Angels, I should say, they weren't trying to contest, they were trying to take the fight after the fact, and that is the correct thing to do. Now, Starry is very, very tanky and sustaining a lot, but it might be a little bit too much to ask. Actually does a really good job of stalling them out, doing lots of damage, and keeping health bars very, very low for the Fallen Angels. So that means they're not even going to get a tier 2 after all that. It was a really big pickup to kill that Medusa. That was important, and that or to get the kill onto Zealot, I should say, from the Medusa. That was key, and well done to Zazith for getting that pick. I think that stalled out what could have been a really dangerous push from the Fallen Angels. They did a lot right there, and again, they didn't go for the contest. You know, it would have been nice if they got the steal, but the fact is they got the fight, and that's always important for me. That's something we don't always see at this level of gameplay. if there's a fire giant being taken in front of you, you don't have to go for the miracle steal. It's actually about taking the fight, because at that time, the food fighters were essentially in a 5v6, if you like, because they're also taking tons of damage from fire giant, and they're also caged in, ready to primed to be hit by all the abilities from the fallen angels. And that's something that the fallen angels, they didn't have to worry about. That they could take the fight on their terms. They did. It was successful for them. It could have been more successful, other than the fact that they're really, really behind. So it's a good swing for them. Had they been more on parity, that could have been game-ending. But we just saw a little glimpse of what can happen if you try and take this fire giant and you underestimate what the fallen angels are able to do, despite what is quite a big deficit still.
So this is an awkward situation for the food fighters now, Zets, because you do have this 8,000 gold lead, and you do have Fire Giant buff on Starry User QD. But aside from that, it's about as even as it can get. We are talking one item on the support for Fallen Angels, and all Phoenixes are up. There is a half HP Phoenix in the mid lane, but you don't really have a lot of advantage to work with. So if you are food fighters, do you sit off and wait maybe for this next enhanced fire giant in just a couple of minutes, or do you try to find an advantage, because it's not exactly a spot you want to find yourselves in?
I actually like what they're doing here. It looks like they're grouping up, maybe trying to find someone who might be wandering around in the jungle, try and look for a pick. Interestingly, it looks like the fallen angels are doing exactly the same. They still look keen on pushing. Again, I don't think they have to fully commit to this. I love that ward placement there for the fallen angels. That will slow anyone that gets hit by it. But they're actually going to go for a little push here, but they're just testing the waters, I think.
Yes.
The fallen angels dealing with that, that's just fine for both teams. Yeah, it is, as you say, an odd kind of state of the game. Fire Giant isn't available. Neither team seems to have a massive advantage. You know, the Fire Giant that was on Star is now worn off. Wasn't particularly impactful anyway. There's no fire minions pushing. There's no only minions pushing. The only thing that's really giving the food fighters the advantage at the moment is there's another one of those. Obviously, they've got item leads and they've got more towers to boot, which gives them that kind of safety net. And that means that they can take a bit more risk with this next Fire Giant, which will be enhanced. But again, you know that the Fallen Angels are going to come and try and contest. And I think they will naturally be a little bit more cautious, a little bit more careful, given how that last Fire Giant fight went. And actually, I think that might hinder them more, because I think, if anything, they should be more proactive and more aggressive at this next enhanced Fire Giant. And maybe look to take the fight before pulling that objective. I think that's key for them. But the problem is, I think in their heads, there'll be that little bit of doubt, and they'll actually be a little bit too cautious now at this stage of the game.
Well, it is a 5-on-5 at the Fire Giant pit. Food Fighters set lives on the line. Fallen Angels only have to win this one, whereas the Food Fighters, even if they do come through here, still have to win another game. It has been one of the closest games of Smite throughout I've probably ever seen. It's very rare to have something go so evenly for so long. Zexy Zealot forced to ult away. Starry Executive forced to run away from this Ares. There's a 5-man grouping from Fallen Angels, blinking from Patrick. He's knocked up on 2. Tova Mesa has to retreat. There comes Bugle Wizard with a fantastic ult, but Tova Mesa just gets out safely. Dharmic Pillars down. What resources do these players have in the back pockets? Zexy Zealot will return to base, as will Tova Mesa. It was close there, Zats, but that wasn't the one. Anyone lazy backing might be punished heftily for it. It is about as tense as it gets you. Looney Tunes has to use the beads from just the RTO dashing in, and now this Patchyman forced to retreat. My goodness, this is tense.
Our Fallen Angels played that so well. They got all the relics they wanted. They got the cooldowns. They very nearly took out Tova Mesa, but then they stuck around far too long. They got caught lazy backing. They got what they wanted, and then they ended up staying too long, and they lost the beads on Looney Tunes, and that will matter massively. And as a result, Food Fighters are able to get that Pyromancer. It swings back in their favour, which is a real shame, because that was a really disciplined fight from the Fallen Angels. They got what they wanted. They didn't overcommit. They played and synced their CC very well. and then they just stayed too long, and it ended up costing them a little bit too much. And as a result, the advantage they might have had from that is not as great as it could have been. But there is hope. There are signs of life there. I think they played that really well. It is really tense, and that's because both teams aren't playing the way they want to play. Right? Both teams are being forced into these little mistakes that they don't want to happen. And again, that's credit to both teams. That it does feel a lot more even this second game.
Griff on the map.
Now this is a bait. I don't think they're looking to commit to this, but they're looking for the fight. And Helenu, and they will happily take this 2 fights.
Oh, the fight has already started. Bugle Wizard forced into the ultimate will be pulled in. Is Starry's Acuity. Griff has teleported over. Dynamic Pillars goes down early. Reaper taking a brawl out with Griff. Doesn't get up into the sky, and the Nuwa off the table. So Fallen Angels in big danger. Have to retreat. The Uproarious Rocket coming through. There is Starry's Acuity getting in there and making things happen. Patrocles goes down. Blinking behind is this Lancelot, but doesn't have enough. Gets caught by the Zash. Taken out. Food Fighters now in an advantage, 5 versus 2. They're going to go for the end.
Reaper got caught well out of position, well away from any teammates by the look of it, and it's a fantastic pick from Gator. Griff didn't get the ultimate off that Nuwa. Oh, that's a real misplay, I think, and it could cost them. They maybe stepped up too high here, but if they can buy time, they might have a chance.
Looney Tunes blown up. Helenu does get traded out, but Bugle Wizard now finds himself completely cut off, just trying to buy some time, but time is not on the side of Fallen Angels. Food Fighters step on in with a huge minion wave and take this game. We are going to game 3.
And well worth, I think, because these two teams have matched each other at times really nicely. There's lots of interesting counterplay between these different players and their respective roles, and actually it feels deserved that we've gone to a third game, because that seems to be the right way of finishing this one out. I'm really excited for game number 3. It's a little bit of a shame for the Fallen Angels. It just didn't quite come together for them, but there's still lots of positives to take, and I can't wait to see what we have in game number 3.
Yeah, it's just great news for us that this has gone to 3 games, because it does mean we get some more of this very close Smite action. But you've seen, it's been close so far. It will continue to be close, we hope. Let's see who comes out on top after we take a short break.
Ready, set, on the go. Ripple Kids plant-based milk is bringing 8 grams of pea protein plus DHA to lunchboxes with new on-the-go singles. The creamy and delicious taste kids love. Now in 12 packs at Midwest Costco's for a limited time.
Celebrate the grand opening of Levin Tire's new Crown Point location. Get a $200 Goodyear rebate plus an additional $20 off any service over $100. Exclusively at Levin Tire. Plus, stop in and sign up for a chance to win a Traeger grill. Offers valid through July 31st, 2024. Stop by one of our 5 locations or visit levintirecenter.com.
Folks ask, Salty Pete, what's the best part of being a pirate? Hello? It's all the buried treasure. I've been following this here treasure map all day.
All right, everybody, it's been even, it's been back and forth, but at the end of the day, it is game number 3. And Zats, I can't think of anything more suiting for these two sets of teams, because like we said right at the top of the broadcast, both teams come in with a 3-1 record. We should give them both the win if we could, but we can't, so someone needs to earn it. And Zats, with the last game going in favor of the food fighters there over the Fallen Angels, what do you think the Fallen Angels need to adjust in order to get ready and hopefully for them take this third game?
Well, it's interesting that I think they need to do what the Fallen Angels, what the Food Fighters needed to do after game number 1. I'm getting the teams muddled again, but it's actually about playing together, not getting picked, not getting caught out of position. There was quite a lot of that in the second game, and again, it completely flipped on its head from the first game. So we need to see that a little bit of a switch up. Again, it's hard to argue about drafts and comps. I don't think they've been in a way relevant in this set. I think it's been more about who's making the plays. I am interested to see this Medusa is now off the table, but actually I'm not too concerned about what we're going to see, because I think it's fair to say there will be strong picks, there'll be not so strong picks, but it's going to be about who's comfortable on them, yes, and who can play them to a high ability, but actually it comes down to who's making the right calls, who's getting on the right targets at the right times, and who's getting momentum of the game, because that's been the key word of this set, is who's got momentum. And really at times it's felt like no one's had it because the fights have been all over the place. Can we see someone take the game from the start and roll with it and not stop?
Yeah, the momentum has literally been a hot potato for that entirety of the last game there. So hopefully this time one of these teams can take it by the scruff of the neck and run ahead with it. But to be honest, I'm not sure I want to see that, because that was a fantastic game to watch just now. Probably because both teams playing hot potato with that momentum. But something that has been a hot potato so far this set has been this Medusa pick, but like you said, it has been taken off the table this time, so both mid laners had a good showing with it, and now neither of them will get it in this third game. But the Kuzumbo has now been left back open for our Fallen Angels to take, and they have decided to top pick it. And I'm almost a little bit surprised by that in some ways, because I did feel like the Ganesh looked pretty strong in the last game. I even felt like Ares has a place, but Kuzumbo just seems to be what Fallen Angels decided is the god they want to go with.
Yeah, and I think it ended up being banned in that game number 2, and I do think Bugle Wizard had a slightly better showing on the Kuzumbo compared to the Ares. I wasn't a big fan of the Ares. I don't think it worked in the comp. I'm not taking anything away from the ability of Bugle Wizard on that Ares. I think there was perfectly good mechanics going on, but I do like the Kuzumbo that little bit more. It's much more disruptive, and it's much more of a threat, I think, than that Ares is at most stages of the game. And that's not something we often say about Ares, but the fact is it's more of a situational pick. Kuzumbo fits into any comp, because look, the chances are there's going to be one, if not two, ADCs on the enemy team, and that is obviously what Kuzumbo really excels at, because of the ability to mitigate and fire that damage back at those ADCs and just disrupt them for so long. I actually am a big fan of it, and I don't mind taking it over the Cucullin, because the Cucullin has been a bit of a bait pick in this set so far.
That's true, actually. Hasn't had the best showing. It seems to be starting very well. You know, we've seen a lot of attention paid there in that last game just to deal with the just lane deficit that Eiko Cullen gives to an Artio, right? Artio really needed that help to get into the game. But after a while, actually, I felt like the Artio was very strong. But we
Yes.
will be seeing, Zach, stop me if you've heard this one before, Cullen versus King Arthur in the solo lane coming out here. It's a matchup we've seen a ton. But it changes over time, right? It's not always the same sort of matchup that it has been in the past, where it's just an even fight all the way. Do you see any particular strength for one god over the other here?
I actually really like the King Arthur. I think it, in a weird way, it will do more than Cullen will late game, and I think that's only because of the way that these fights have played out. And I was going to use the word team fights, but they haven't often been team fights. It's been about how long can you kite as a solo layer, and actually King Arthur can actually do that very well. You know, using that ultimate to take you and an enemy out of the fight for 2 or 3 seconds is really, really valuable. You'll be able to sustain a little bit with that new shield that's in the game. And you know, in terms of laning phase, they'll cancel each other out, and it'll be about who ganks who. So I actually prefer the King Arthur over the Cullen. The problem here is that actually they've picked up an Artio, which is likely going to support. Now, I didn't like the Artio solo pick. I think it struggled in lane, but actually, as the game went on, it was nearly impossible to deal with, which surprised me.
Yeah.
But sustain coming out, similar to a King Arthur, the disruption and the control that it had was very, very good. And now you've actually got the Artio into a better matchup, in my opinion. It's so good into the King Arthur, even if you're not in that lane directly. I actually think that's a really good pickup, and again, I hope that's Artio support. I think that's actually her best role, but I was really surprised by how effective that pick was in the last game.
An interesting pick that we haven't seen a lot of is this Apollo coming out. And Apollo does the job probably better than anyone, which we touched on in the first game set, in that making that map very wide and really creating space. But I do wonder if it's the right pickup here. You know, it doesn't feel like a team composition that really needs that. And to put an emphasis on that, Erlang Shen sets, that god exists, remember, has been picked up finally. Haven't seen it at all in this set, but finally will be seeing it coming out from Zexy Zealot and the Morgan Le Fay. This feels like a team composition that really wants to fight together and as a strong unit, and having the Apollo around, I suppose, does a good job of diving when needed, right? So maybe it won't be used to spread the map, and maybe we'll be focused more on showing up in a location that maybe the rest of the team doesn't want. But wow, very, very tanky team coming out here from Food Fighters. The good news for me is I don't have to try and break it down. Take it away.
I kind of like Odin in the jungle. I think it suits what Gator Griff wants to do. It's early ganks are very, very effective. They'll be good ganking solo. They'll be good ganking duo. The Odin Cage has massive value. Now, do you have a follow-up for that Odin Cage? Probably not. But I think it's different when you play Odin in a jungle. You're able to use that high base damage. You'll have much more cooldown and kill potential than you would in that solo lane with a more traditional tanky build. I actually really quite like this, and I don't think it will come down to those big team fight Odin Cages. I think that ultimate will actually come into effect much earlier than we're used to seeing from an Odin. And I think that will actually make it a much better pick than I initially would have suggested from this team comp. It's a spanner in the works that I actually kind of like. Again, I think Gato Griff looks a lot better on these more set up early game, lots of base damage solo junglers, I should say, and I think the Odin does suit that. Interestingly, though, I think on the other side you've got Zexy Zealot with Erlang Shen, who is frankly a bit of a menace, and perhaps even more so than an Odin would be in the early game, and that could be a key turning point, because the way these games have gone for the Fallen Angels have entirely depended on how much Zexy Zealot is able to do from the jungle. And I think this Erlang Shen could be the most frightening jungle pick we've seen out of them yet.
Yeah, Zexy Zealot, one of those players that we've seen this set who's just had a good game every game so far.
Yeah.
A clear 7 or 8 out of 10 performance every time, and you give that sort of player a god like Erlang Shen who has that potential to just go absolutely wild, right? And generally can do that even if they got off to a bad start. Erlang Shen has this sort of early game presence that is very powerful, but can also turn up late game if that's when you need them. So I'm very happy to see Fallen Angels giving Zexy Zealot this pick. But again, Seth, similar to how I've asked in the other games, is there a team comp here that you think needs to get more active early on?
I do think the Odin it's important that you use that early power that you have and the early base damage. It's important that you get off to a good start, whereas on the other side, I don't think it's as important. I think you will scale naturally better into the late game. I think, weirdly, this King Arthur isn't usually thought of as better than Cull in the late game. I think in this case it is. I think it's actually going to do a lot more to kind of keep a backline busy than Cullen is able to do, and I think that's because, frankly, solo laners aren't as tanky as we used to see. So I think the food fighters, they will need to get the ball rolling. They will need to be a little bit more proactive. And frankly, it's entirely around which jungler is willing to do that.
Well, here we go. This is it. Fallen Angels versus Food Fighters. Winner takes a lead in the charts over the other, and the other will have to sit. We will be kept waiting just that little bit longer, though, because these players have decided to make us pause and wait. This is, of course, a live game, folks, so we do not know what could potentially happen. So everything up in the air. But that's everyone in the positions that you would be expecting. We do have an Artio in the support role. We do have this Odin in the jungle, and the Erlang Shen, of course, in the jungle. Is there anywhere else you would have moved this, or do you think this is just undeniably the way to go forward?
No, I think this is the optimal way of doing things. I've mentioned Artio support. I actually think it's very, very good at sort of brawling in that early 2v2. I think better than most other supports can manage, and I think it's especially good into that Kuzumbo as well. The ability to cripple the Kuzumbo and then keep it locked down is really, really powerful. It's something that not a lot of other supports can do. I'm a big fan of it. I like this war flag. We're not going to see a Cannoneer's Curus, which I'm so thankful for, because I don't. We saw 2 of them. Both supports opted for it last game, despite my protestations. It looks like I think it'll be a shifter shield for Helnu early this time, and I think that's a phenomenal pickup. Getting a little bit of power as well from that passive. I think this could be the make or break. And if you combine that with what Gator Griffith is going to try and do in this Odin jungle, just get around the map, start roaming and trying to take people out, use that Odin cage, use that lockdown. You will have enough just pure base damage from those 2 characters alone. Never mind what the backliners are able to do. That will be huge, I think. So it's really important that they start correctly, they start quickly. But the Fallen Angels, the longer it goes, I think the more comfortable they'll end up being. It's hard to say, though, and they would keep us in suspense with a pause like that. It's obviously because Gator Griff put the starter item in the second slot, which is a travesty, and why the game tried to crash them.
Just give the win to Fallen Angels now, right? Just get it over with. But so speaking of this jungle pathing, those Zets, the concern I have for Zexy Zealot in this game is actually that Erlang Shen, like we've touched on, can get really active early, can be an absolute menace. But who is he going to be a menace on in this game? There are really not any good targets anywhere across the map, because it's maybe just Tova Mesa, but we've already seen how this player wants to play Rama. It's very safe, very far back, and can of course hit those snipes. So I actually worry that if Zexy Zealot will be able to get active early on, especially if there's an Odin and an Artio roaming around, because bumping into those 2 is something that Erlang Shen can't really deal with.
Yeah, I think that's fair. The thing about Erlang is he has so much CC now with the knockup coming back on his 3, and so much chase down potential that it kind of doesn't matter as long as it's early enough in the game where health bars are very volatile. Erlang will be able to burn through that because there won't be much to stop you from just autoing down whoever you really want. Nice damage coming out from Looney Tunes. That's the Warriors Axe, Diff, I have to say. I look, I quite like it on Hachi. I'm not a big fan of it on Apollo. I don't really see it, but I don't think we've ever got to the point where the Axe of Animosity has come into effect. I hope we don't see the shifters on Apollo. I'm yet to be convinced by this build pass, shall we say, even though I don't hate the choice of starter item. I've got another pause coming out. Yeah, nothing really to choose between the two as of yet. We're 1 minute in. Zexy Zealot looking to get aggressive, but I think Starry possibly knows about actually playing pretty far back. But again, that's because Patrick Elise has good pressure coming out from this King Arthur.
Yeah, like we said earlier, when Cucullin and King Arthur is such a dead even matchup, it comes down to which jungler gets involved early or who ends up making a big mistake. Now, both these players not making a mistake currently, but Zexy's out lurking around that corner, which Starry should be aware of, right? Because that's exactly what the Food Fighters did in the last game, right? If they felt like they needed that edge in the solo lane, send the jungler over early, make something happen. And as of yet, hasn't happened just now. But there is always the potential, right? And it does mean that if Starry has to give up just a little bit more space to the King Arthur, they can build this pressure. So even though Zexy Zealot might not get anything done here, with the nature of the jungle pathing and everything, not really missing out on anything, right? It's not like you're getting punished for stepping too high up. This is where junglers have a little bit of freedom to kind of do whatever feels quite right. And right now it seems like, obviously, Zexy Zealot making a rotation to this solo lane, but we could possibly see Gato Griffia making a rotation to this dual lane. But again, with the way that the advantage has been in favor of Fallen Angels, Tomo Mesa there actually full HP apparently. I don't know when all of that HP came back. I guess just pumping the potions coming out. So it seems like the advantage that Fallen Angels had built up doesn't seem to quite be sticking there. But, you know, anything that you can do to relieve any sort of pressure, again, when the junglers have this free time, can only benefit you in the long run.
Yeah, it's interesting that both junglers, they obviously choose which side of camps they want to go to. Yeah, you know, sometimes that can be utilized. We saw in game number one they actually took that really early fight. Did Zexy Zealot and Reaper decided not to go for the safe farm, went for the 2v2 and got that first blood. But usually, yes, we see junglers deviate to one side or the other, and then, you know, there's obviously room for a gank there, which is why I think no one should ever really be caught out by those, because you know that the way jungle pathing is, there you are naturally going to have a jungler end up one side or the other, and usually they swap around and alternate. But we'll see now if this bears any fruit, whether Gator Griff might possibly go for that gank in the left side. Starry, that's a jump and that's dead. Surely.
Starry does jump in, does have the shove to try to get back to safety. Will get under the tower. Is there anything the Fallen Angels have? No, there is not. So first gank attempt not working out, but does at least put some pressure onto Starry on this Cucullin. Now the dual lane, we did mention there is the presence of Griff over here. However, already been spotted on 2 wards, will mean that the Odin will not succeed with anything. So both junglers come up relatively empty and maybe just getting in on some of the cheap farm nearby. So pressure now in favor of Food Fighters ever so slightly in the dual lane, whereas pressure in favor of Fallen Angels in the solo lane. The mid laners more than happy, absolutely nothing going on there. That's a mid laner's dream for the next 20 minutes if possible. But it does seem like we are, as expected, in this almost more cagey style of game, right? No one getting too active too early, because everyone knows that this game is the last one of the set.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting that yes, it's more cagey, but it's also just correct from both teams. You know,
yes.
There's, you know, Starry perhaps got a little bit lucky. You know, used that jump, then the gank came through, and luckily had that transformation, that rage transformation, just about did enough to get out of there, and could well have returned it with Zexy Zealot taking a tower dive as well. It's very, very fine margins, but it does feel completely different to the first 2 games. I think that's because both teams know that it feels like they've both had a game each, right, where they dominated the other, and now it's time to see which one is actually the best of these two in a proper, even game. It feels like an EU game, you know, Judas, where no one's quite as willing to take as many risks. And that doesn't mean we're having any less fun casting it, because actually there's a lot to enjoy about the way these two teams are playing the map at the moment. Because as I say, it's so much more efficient. This is by far the quickest bull demon we've seen in the entire set, and that's because both teams, and particularly the Fallen Angels at the stage, they're playing the map as they should be doing. And that one gank in Soleil may not have gotten you a kill, but all of that led to... Oh, hang on. We've got the first bull demon of the game, but ult's been traded.
Oh, Tova Mesa very, very low, but not dead just yet. And that will be enough. Almost. First blood in this game going away at Fallen Angels, but does not quite. Similarly, Reaper falling very low in mid lane, but nobody down just yet. Like you said, Zat, it's just like an EU game. It is the small margins that will make all the difference here. And right now, it is almost a dead even game. We're talking 150 gold, and even then, that's with a bull demon going down, some contestable farm. Does this suit either team in a particular way? Like, would one team say, you know what, we're quite happy to go late?
I think Fallen Angels, it suits slightly more. It helps that they've got the first bull demon of the game. Starry, a little bit aggressive here. I quite like this, actually. Zexy does have the help coming, actually, and knows it, but Starry getting on out of there. Again, just gets a little invade off and forces the rotation from Reaper as well. Just little things like that. It's actually... It feels pretty clean from both teams at the moment, and what it does mean is that I think the Fallen Angels will naturally be happy to scale a little bit more into the late game. I think this King Arthur will be more effective in the late game. I've been wrong before. I've been wrong plenty in this set so far. Starry might have an absolute worldie on this Cucullin, but gank may be coming out from Tova Mesa, possibly getting baited by the low health bar from Luigi.
Voted in, but Looney Tunes might be in some danger, actually. Helnu will do good damage, and the Astral Barrage will do even better damage, but does dash outside of any dangerous range. And it's going to take to the sky. Is Looney Tunes going to have to dive the tower for that? It's going to be a trade. Doesn't connect with the shot. Doesn't connect with the So Beautiful, and does go down to Helnu. What were they thinking? It almost worked, but instead you give up first blood. A fight in the duel, the solo lane as well, similarly doesn't pay off for Fallen Angels.
Everything we were saying about being really, really clean. You know what? I don't mind that play, but you do have to hit abilities to secure that kill, and unfortunately, nothing on the mark for Looney Tunes. The ult was off the mark, and the one was off the mark. It's a shame to lose first blood that way. Probably, in hindsight, not the correct call, but actually, if you hit anything there, you get first blood. Now, Griff going in, there's a great cage, and this could be huge for them.
Great cage, Zealot already down, and Patrocles might be soon to follow. King Arthur, no mana to work with. Does Griff have the damage? No, they do not. Zareth cannot connect with that shot over the wall either. So again, another kill away of Food Fighters, just doing what they need to do. Now they go up, follow with an invade. Tova Mesa still putting the pressure out on this dual lane as well. It just means that nothing now is going the way of Fallen Angels. And they don't want to be giving up this space, right? Because when the game is as close as it's been, momentum, like we said, being the name of the game, you do not want to hand it over.
Absolutely. I do think that I just love what Griff is doing this game, and it's crazy that Gator Griff had let's fair to say a pretty poor game number one, but the Naja was fantastic. I love the Odin so far. Been pretty patient. I think there's a difference between being overly cautious and being patient. Waited to get that Yon's Wrath online, and as soon as it's online, bam, blink ult, get the kill, get the invade. Could have gotten another kill if Patrocles didn't have maybe that healing in that item, but it's a gank from Zexy Zella. Tova Mesa not realising yet, and
alive.
No, don't do that!
The three shots now stands in place and just says, you want to hit shots, do it, and will end up falling down. Tova Mesa does fall to Zexy Zealot, but surely could have been done differently. Now, Helenu needs to be careful, actually, because there is potential here for them to be killed off. Does drop the stun, does then dash away and will be safe enough. Meanwhile, in the mid lane, Xerath and Reaper brawl it out, and Xerath comes on top with help from Griff. This game has sprung into life, Zats, and it's all going in favor of Food Fighters.
Beautiful. I love this style of jungler. I don't think we see it enough, but it's just so easy to be useful in the early game when you've got lots of base damage, you've got your CDR online. Odin Cage is a guaranteed kill when you're playing it in jungle and you're caging people at this early stage of the game, especially into the comp they're up against. You know, no one can get out of that Odin Cage without a Phantom or an ultimate used for the Apollo, for example. It's such a... I just love the picks so much, and I love how they're playing it. They're doing it exactly correctly. You know, don't worry about duolane as much. You know, Tova Mesa is clearly perfectly happy to brawl it out and fight in that duolane, and even at a numbers disadvantage is looking pretty strong. So don't worry about that so much. Focus on the mid lane, focus on the solo lane. I love what Gator Griff is doing. Is sacrificing farm as well. Zexy Zealot has throughout this set farmed a little bit more efficiently than Griff has, but this is kind of what you're choosing to give up with this kind of pick.
Yes. Well, Zexy Zealot now takes the ball, gets the taunt and the double knockup. It is Starry and Griff here, who are relatively tanky here, but will not decide to take that 2 versus 3. And this will be a Bull Demon starting it up because Xerath is just so low, too low to be able to contend this comfortably. But the Food Fighters do not want to give this up cheap. And now it might be a mistake. Xerath now forced to jump away, gets caught by the pin. There's the Odin Cage coming down, but Griff is low and has to retreat. There is a triple knockup from Starry, but they just don't have the damage here. Now there's the Helenu on scene. This could be pretty big from the Artio. Gets the bear claws out. That will be enough to take down Patrocles. Food Fighters dancing with death, but come out on top.
And that's all about Helenu making the perfect rotation. I think they were already playing that pretty well. Gator Griff had an excellent cage, used the shield to survive that a little bit longer, to get the jump away. Peeled, got out, didn't lose anything. It was really clean play. I really love it. And then Helenu turns up and makes a big difference there. And unfortunately, Bugle Wizard just 5 seconds behind on that rotation made all the difference. I thought it was a little bit overzealous to be pulling that Bull Demon. Patrocles had no mana, was tanking quite a lot of damage already. And clearly, Food Fighters were looking to just stick around and try and fight where possible. God, they're playing super well at the moment, but this could be the win con. It's Zexy Zealot fighting Zarvin.
Yep, just brawling. There comes an Apollo dunking down on the top of this Tiamat as well, and that's enough for this fight so far. Helenu is on their own, and if Fallen Angels knew that, I think this Artio could be in some danger. But Fallen Angels need to find something somewhere, right? Like you mentioned, the win condition could be Zexy Zealot on this Erlang Shen. Has done okay, has found a bit more efficiently than the Odin, like you might expect, but needs to start getting involved at some point, because the game is not by any means out of control for Fallen Angels, but you don't want to let this trend continue for too much longer. And I quite like this, getting onto Griff when you see an opportunity. Just try to get something out of this Odin. Reaper wants absolutely nothing to do with this Odin, clearly. Doesn't even take the brawl. But with dual lane going so heavily in favor of Food Fighters, Tova just having the better of Looney Tunes in this set so far, I think the choice to kind of let it go is maybe the right thing to do, because this Apollo still has the power to split push. This is a 1v1 going on here, but Bugle Wizard now on the scene again, gets the beads on a Tova Mesa, who does not need to be here, giving up this much. Missed the first arrow. Now he cannot get the kills, but needs to get some safety out. That's a fantastic use of the ultimate from Bugle Wizard there. Tova Mesa completely baited into their death, and that is how you fight back into this Rama.
Yeah, poor positioning, you have to say, from Tova Mesa has been very good this set, but just silly fight there. You don't have vision. I mean, you've got to expect that rotation, and it's just too easy in the end. Good pick onto Zexy Zealot. I think that was a fight over the Bull Demon, and that's Gator Griff taking down their opposite number. Yeah, that's a big swing, actually. So it looks like Bull Demon's gone one way, Stygian Beacon has gone the other. It's come slightly back into Fallen Angels' control with that pick onto Tova Mesa, but really you feel like that's only because of a mistake from this Rama more
Yes.
than anything else. And it still feels like Food Fighters are very much in control, especially with getting that kill onto the other.
Yeah, Foo Fighters, that ever bit more proactive, it feels like. There's been some attempts, of course, from Fallen Angels, but it seems like Food Fighters, especially on this right-hand side of the map, are now starting to grow. They're not playing on the defensive, they're not reacting anymore, they are being on the front foot and taking like these fights against these ball demons. Fallen Angels have been on top of this objective generally, but Food Fighters are now showing that they're more than willing to contend it, and have had a lot of success doing it. And Looney Tunes having some success onto Tova Mesa here, does not get the shot with the Mez. Now goes up into the ult, but Tova Mesa will similarly take off to this guy. So both ADCs just decide to run away. Tova Mesa fires off the shots. The Apollo waited at the perfect amount of time, but Griff right on top of the Looney Tunes, surely going down. Fantastic use of the Aegis. He's still in the fight, and Heladu is trying to brawl it out, but just getting completely knocked and tossed around. Fallen Angels taking a fight they desperately needed. Griff all alone goes for the bird bomb, doesn't connect onto Looney Tunes, who is still in this fight. Reaper as well shows up. Zareth now makes a rotation, but now has to try and retreat. Can't jump over the wall. Uses the beads, but Sexy Zealot already there. The knock up, not enough. The slow from the Kappa will be enough, and Zareth will be falling down. Bugle Wizard to take it. Huge swing for Fallen Angels.
Massive swing. They might be able to get Gold Fury. Health bars are pretty low. I actually think this is too risky. Bugle Wizard will be able to tank it now. They're going to back off, I think. Not quite in a position, but it's a rotation from Starry.
Ari's in. There's low health bars to deal with, but nothing doing because the Fallen Angels will retreat. But I think that teleport necessary to get the Gold Fury off of Fallen Angels, but instead looks like it's going into the hands of the Food Fighters now. A Raven Ward will spot this out. Patrocles is here. Bugle Wizard the only one to contend because the Apollo being zoned out of this fight. This Gold Fury is very low. It's juggling around. Sorry is the one taking the damage, and the Fallen Angels are going to steal it away. The Odin Cage goes down, but it's not going to be enough. Patrocles coming in, but now gets turned onto the front line, is taking too much damage in this fight. But here comes Reaper, dishing out the damage as the Morgan Le Fay. Over the wall comes Zareth as well. Apollo is still here. Looney Tunes does not want to retreat, but now finds themselves square in the face with Griffiths. Round 2 between these two. But again, Looney Tunes comes out on top with the help of Reaper. The Astral Barrage, not enough from Tova Mesa. Looney Tunes still consistently fighting through all of this action, but is still not going down, and Heladu instead might be the one going down. One more shot will take it. A killing spree, but the Apollo wants a bit more as well, and does take down Starry. Zareth trying to make something happen for their team, but it's just not working out. Goes for the shots, doesn't find enough damage, and Reaper shall be on a killing spree of their own and turns it onto Tova, who dives in, dies down. 4 dead for Food Fighters. Griff, who had already fallen. My goodness, what a fight.
So by my count, Judas, I think that was a 5 for 4.
I think so.
Absolute madness, but yeah, you're right. Gator Griff fell at the start. Patrocles fell about the midway point through that fight, able to come back in without a teleport. I was able to walk back in and finish the job. At the end of the day, Fallen Angels, I think, got the Gold Fury. It was good work from Patrocles. Got a really good ultimate onto the Cucullin to stall things out. May well have stolen that Gold Fury as well. It was one of the tanks, I think. It took a little while for help to come in, and that's because health bars were already low for the Food Fighters. But eventually, when they did turn up, Reaper was doing a ton of damage on this Morgan Le Fay. It was all pretty easy. And Looney Tunes, all you need to do is lose the 1v1 in the first 2 games, and then you just become a magnet for all the ire that Food Fighters are throwing at you. And it actually has cost them a fair bit this game already. This Apollo has been really difficult to dive and to deal with, and it's actually resulted in people being caught out of position. You know, Griff was caught out in that fight trying to dive this Apollo, who's been a real thorn in the side of Food Fighters. Man, That was a ridiculous fight, probably about 2 minutes long. Well done for going through most of it. Now, if seeing a fight over the beacon here, Gator Griff is getting CC'd, forced to use the beads, and they're still scrapping over this. Hellbars are low, but I'm not sure anyone's going to fall, and a bit of sustain as well. All of this over a beacon, and this slow EU-style game has accelerated up to America.
Oh, here we go. Then we are all the way up in NA territory right now as the Spore-Man stun comes out from Helenu, who then takes all the brunt of the attention. Tova Mesa over the wall, ready to spring the trap when they see an opportunity. Griff has to return to base, but will surely be right on the way back. The beacon still nowhere near full complete. Tova is firing off shots. Helenu has to retreat, will get out alive. Tova still brawling. Starry goes in, dashing in. The beacon now in control of Food Fighters, but who will take full control? Tova has to retreat. Zareth gets the damage you need up into the sky. Goes Tova, takes down another. Now the beacon all the way in favor of Food Fighters, and Fallen Angels have to retreat, but there's another cage from Griff right back on the scene to take yet another kill. Patrocles retreats and gets dunked down onto a big swing this time for the Food Fighters.
4-4-0, and for so long it was none for none. No one was dying. Health bars were low across the board, and then Zarzif just throws some damage over the wall. And to be fair, this Tiamat has been largely ignored throughout this game. Has the tablet, has the Cronus Pendant, has the Book of Thoth finished. Ton of damage coming out, and they just didn't quite respect that. Man, such fine margins, and it feels unjust to lose that fight by such a big swing. 4 for none in the hour, 5 for none once Patrocles fell, and they lost the beacon. Only a 4,000 gold deficit after all of that, but absolutely unbelievable. I don't know where you even begin to analyse that fight. This is by far the cleanest that both teams have been, and it's honestly a real pleasure to watch. The fact that one of these teams has to somehow come out on top, and that time it was the Food Fighters getting an enormous swing. We talked about how much it's been about comms, it's been about team play. In this game and that particular fight, it actually felt like the comp had never been more relevant, because both teams were kind of an even keel in terms of how they're playing the map, how they're playing team fights. Both teams are doing that really well. It's now actually come down to the picks and the comp that they've got, and I think the Food Fighters, once again at this stage, you have to say it does favour them a little bit, because they're getting the value from the owning cage. Zarzith has lots of consistent poke damage. I think Helenu is doing excellent work on this RTO, and Tova Mesa is able to help out with that dive a little bit better than the Apollo is. But it's such fine margins, and I hope we get to see another one of those. I don't know which way this game is going, to be honest.
Well, it could be another fight on the way right about now, because the Food Fighters are making their eyes at this Gold Fury. But they want to create some space. They do have a 4,000-ish gold lead, but they certainly don't want to take that for granted and take a fight that they don't necessarily need to go for. Reaper stepped up in danger and does get caught lazy backing. Now, how do Fallen Angels react to this? We'll try to retreat, but that'll be the cage. That'll be the pick that the Food Fighters were looking for. And unfortunately for the Fallen Angels, they can do nothing to respond. Now, this Gold Fury, wide open for Food Fighters. Do they take the opportunity, though?
And interestingly, Reaper had the shell available, so ready to get out of the Odin cage, but you can't use it when you're channeling your ultimate, and unfortunately just gets caught out a little bit too high there. It's a shame, because the damage has been really good from both mid lanes. Everyone's been playing really well this game, but now it will swing in the favour of the Food Fighters. We're going to need a steal from Bugle Wizard.
Bugle Wizard going for it, goes in, does not get it, and will pay the ultimate price for it. Now, they had elected to pretty much give that up, right? That was a steal attempt and nothing more. You're not looking to take a full brawl there, but now there's some space on the map, right? 30 seconds that Bugle Wizard has gone for. Zexy Zealot is way behind enemy lines and has been spotted out by the Rama. Now, this is exactly what Fallen Angels don't need. They don't want to be chaining these deaths and just giving up so much space. Now, Zexy Zealot will get out alive. In fact, it looks like Food Fighters aren't aware of where they are, which does mean that they do not instantly pull this Fire Giant, and it doesn't seem like they're going to, but my goodness, it's such a tight game That's that any small mistake here could just be the end of it.
Yeah, and you think if maybe the Food Fighters weren't quite in position to punish that from Zexy Zella, and that is a very mobile Erlong Shen. I actually quite like this push here. It's going to be a 2v2. They're going to get a tier 2 tower. That's actually a massive win. Can they get out without losing anything more? Looks like not. Zealot's been caged. Will surely fall. And will they get more now? But backup is on the way.
Yeah, Looney Tunes not ulting out, has nowhere to go, has been fighting quite well, but now tries to ult and will not be able to get out. Surely could have ulted out of that one earlier, and now the sloppiness seems to be coming into Fallen Angels. They are starting to suffer, and I'd just like to point out to everyone, Fallen Angels are currently top of this division. Food Fighters find themselves in third despite having an equal record, but surely a victory here will take them above Fallen Angels. So, Fallen Angels, if they want to be the top seeds, they need to stop playing like it.
Yeah, and to be fair, that was the first time that we've seen a really, I think you're right, sloppy is the word. There's just no reason to be caught out there, being a bit over aggressive. This is a good pull actually, and Fallen Angels again. Zealots only just respawn. They don't have Looney Tunes for a little bit. We'll have the ultimate when they're up. And the burn is slow, and I think Bugle Wizard is disrupting a little bit. Might have to give this up, unfortunately, despite doing pretty good work. If they can bait out a little bit longer and stall them a little bit longer, there could be a chance not to steal it, but take the fight after the fact.
Oh, they've committed so much forward, how the Fallen Angels, but they will not get the objective.
A good ult.
They still want the fight after the fact, though, and actually it's going big for Fallen Angels. All of the circles connecting onto Food Fighters' heads. Starry dashing out, though, very important. Does take down that big damage target from the King Arthur. Now Helenu rolling out with Zexy Zealot, but that will be that for them. They need to retreat now, do Fallen Angels. They've taken what they could, but they can do no more. Zareth leaping forward, wants to get in. Looney Tunes doing what they can to peel themselves out as Reaper firing damage over the wall. It is a Fire Giant on 4 for the Food Fighters, but crucially, Zats, Tova Mesa did fall down in that fight and does not have the buff.
Yeah, and that's only because of what Patrocles and Bugle Wizard, to be fair, was able to do. Bugle Wizard on this Kuzubo slowed them down just enough, because the burn was not terrific. It's only 25 minutes. You don't have, a ton of damage on it at this stage of the game. And then Patrocles, committed. You had to. You're not looking for the steal, as we said. We're looking for the fight. And what Patrocles was able to do was use that King Arthur ultimate to just wait out that little bit more time needed before Looney Tunes was able to fly on in with the ultimate, before Zexy Zealot was able to jump in on the backline with the blink. That was all the time they needed to get that crucially important pick. Now, I thought the fight might go even better for them, but I think the way it went, the Fire Giant sustain started to become more relevant, and that was actually the turning point for me. And unfortunately, once they got that pick, they never really looked like getting another one. And I think that's because that's the effect of having that pretty early Fire Giant buff. I think that's pretty crucial at this stage of the game. So well played from the Food Fighters, and the ultimate from Tova Mesa, but should be perfectly safe. They'll get a Gold Fury as well, and Oni Fury will be useful at this stage of the game. They can push, they can take some tier 2 towers, and then they can back spend their gold and get ready for the next Fire Giant.
I think very notable that from the Fallen Angels here in that last fight in the Fire Giant is there is no anti-heal on the side of Fallen Angels whatsoever. And it's not that there is a massive amount of healing for Food Fighters, but the Fire Giant sustain combined with the RTOs. Hello, there is Griff getting caught out and shut down there. So big chunk of gold going in the pocket for Reaper. But yes, no anti-heal in the pocket yet means that the RTO sustain would have been that little bit more effective. The Fire Giant sustain would have made that little edge go the way of Food Fighters. So definitely something that the Fallen Angels need to correct as soon as they can. Now there is still space for the Food Fighters. They should take another tier 2 tower. Probably won't make Eyes of the Phoenix without Griff on the map, but definitely now momentum set for Food Fighters. Can they hold on to it though?
Yeah, it's been certainly dulled by the fact that Tova Mesa doesn't have FGs. We mentioned Gato Griff getting caught out on the right hand side. A little bit odd there to get caught out. It will slow them down. It's actually a tier 2 trade in the end, as we get a good split push from Looney Tunes. It does have the Axe of Animosity online now. This has actually been the best performance we've seen from Looney Tunes so far.
Yes.
And I like to switch away. Zarzik has gone in. Well, surely
That is straight up a mistake there from the Tiamat. Leaps into just Looney Tunes, they thought. However, they should have thought better because Reaper and Bugle Wizard were stood right there in the lane. And yes, the Tiamat does now fall. Now, there is nothing to be gained for Fallen Angels just now, but this is where it's at. Like you said, it's not been so much about comp, it's been more about team play this set so far. Now, this game has been about comp, but now, with it being to this late game stage, Enhanced Fire Giant inbound, not here quite yet, but probably will be the next Fire Giant, will be enhanced. This is where the nerves start coming in. Your communication, your awareness, your ward coverage needs to be a lot better for both teams, because Fallen Angels have done a good job of keeping this pretty even. I feel like they were down more before the Fire Giant went down, so they fought right back into this game and are definitely a huge threat.
Yeah, I think the fact they managed to get a few little picks despite the Fire Giant, I think they've had 3 picks since that Fire Giant onto Griff, Zarzif and Tovamessa. They've also been split pushing pretty well. So, yeah, as a result, they're not as far behind as they could be at this stage. And Food Fighters still need to be very, very respectful. You know, you look at the slash lines, it's not great for Patrocles and Zexy Zealot, but they are still very much relevant in this game. And
yes,
I think if Zealot is allowed to run down one of these backfires and just given enough space to do so, then it could be pretty catastrophic. But more importantly, it will give enough space and room and setup for the backliners to really shine. And I think they already have a lot more than the first 2 games. Reaper and Looney Tunes look really, really strong this game. You know, they've been caught out a little out of position a few times, but the damage output is certainly there from both of them. The Kuzenbo looks actually really, really strong. You can see why it was banned, game number 2. Despite Cannon is curious, the Kuzenbo is doing very, very well. Probably outperforming the RTO just that little bit, but again, it's so tough to call. It's going to be about who can sync up their CC better, who can coordinate what they're trying to do. We've got an interesting split push here, actually, but
oh, Looney Tunes.
Not for long. They need to get this kill, though, otherwise, yeah, now they're out of position. They should look to take this fight, and Food Fighters are trying to back up.
Patrocles in, Tovamessa has to dash away, and this Rama has to get out of this fight. No impact available. Helenu knocked up, knocked around, and killed off. Patrocles taken on 3 all by themselves, but ill-advised as they take too much damage. And now it is 1-for-1 overall, but the health bar's in favor of Fallen Angels. This could be a fast Fire Giant pull. It is enhanced. It is vital. Who picks this one up? Now it is just Starry here. Nobody here yet, and the Fire Giant is burning fast. What can Starry do on this control? What impact can you have? The health bars are not particularly good for Fallen Angels. Starry goes in, gets onto the backline, knock up onto absolutely everyone. The shell comes out, the Fire Giant's low. Rama's in the air trying to fight it down, but Fallen Angels do get the all-important objective. Zexy Zealot is down. Fallen Angels need to retreat. They have EFG on 3, but they can do no more with it. Reaper sticks around for just a moment, does not get knocked up. Griff wants to give chase. Starry blinking over the wall. Nice ult from Reaper, but they're not able to heal enough. Looney Tunes now finds themselves aggressed on. Bugle Wizard will play bodyguard. It's very dicey for Fallen Angels, but they're still alive for the moment.
Massive, and they've still got 5 members up against 3 members of the Fallen Angels, 1 without Fire Giant. Bugle Wizard is doing a pretty good job of disrupting, but
Griff down.
Actually.
The get Griff. Patrocles now brawling out again, but is falling down. Monsar is still just about alive, and Looney Tunes needs to stay alive, otherwise this door will be busted wide open. Looney Tunes low. Looney Tunes trying to fight back, but does not a triple kill for Tovamessa. 6 seconds on Zexy Zealot to the Food Fighters retreat. They back away. They do not back themselves, and this game continues on.
I mean, the health bar is very, very low for Zarzif. Maybe that's the correct call, but I'm sure they could have ended there. There is still a tier 2 tower up in the right-hand side. Obviously, Zexy Zealot would have easily respawned in time. Reaper is now up as well. Zarzif's super, super low. Maybe that's the correct call. I do feel they're probably in a position to try and end there, because you know you don't lose the game off of trying to end at that stage, even if Zexy Zealot makes a good play and gets the kill onto Zarzif, then you have to back up. You haven't lost off of it, right? But in the end, they've gone for the very safe option. It was it was fine, though. It was the fact that I think Starry did a really good job of around that fire giant, and
Yes.
you know, it was able to get the big whirlwind onto all three backliners. Did a lot of work. You know, the steal is always going to be tricky, but that's not what you're doing with that kind of engage. You're trying to disrupt the backline, do as much damage as you can while they're tanking fire giant, and it ended up working pretty well for them. And as a result, the fire giant is on nobody, and no one has that EFG buff, and we're kind of back to square one. The only difference being Fallen Angels did lose their mid Phoenix, and that's going to be crucial. The fact is, you've opened the base, and in this kind of close, even game, that little margin will matter. But again, it's a mid Phoenix. It's not a big difference, and it feels like we're back to even once again.
Yeah, back to pretty much even. Given that we are even, I'm surprised that the Food Fighters have given the space for that Pyromancer to go the way of Fallen Angels. But, well, they might be making eyes for this left side Phoenix as well, and I think Fallen Angels need to be alert to this. It could go down fast if given the opportunity. There are 2 runic bombs in the pockets of the Food Fighters. They are forcing this issue. Dashing in is Helena. They want to get this game done. The first bomb goes down. The left Phoenix does get killed off. What can Fallen Angels do in response? Tova Mesa takes to the sky, but Looney Tunes finds himself all the way in the backline, caught in the Odin cage as well, and does get killed off. Now the rest of the team are trying to back up, and it is just the front line left. Zexy Zella not in this fight. They're trying to push the right lane instead, but Fallen Angels have lost too many going into the base of the Food Fighters. The Titan is under duress. Tova Mesa firing off and finds the Titan. The Food Fighters take this in a hard-fought victory, but they do it in 3 games.
Well deserved. Really good plays across the board from both teams in the end. Fallen Angels, they went for that split push. They stepped up a little bit too far to try and defend that Phoenix, which absolutely melted, by the way.
Yes.
I think in the end we saw what this comp was able to do, and it did scale really well. I said it might not scale. I said the King Arthur might be stronger, but actually that was the best game that Starry had. Helenu had an excellent performance on the RTO. Gaia Griff was brilliant on the Odin throughout the early game, and that allowed the 2 backliners to really thrive in that late game situation. And actually, I think a lot of that is down to what that Cullen was able to do, combined with an Odin cage. Really, really nicely done. They thoroughly deserved it. I really enjoyed watching them play with that comp that they've developed.
Yep.
And frankly, both teams were up. The standard was so much higher in that third game. It was a real pleasure to watch, and both teams should be pretty proud of that.
Absolutely. Definitely one of those games where the 2 teams were so evenly matched. But one of them had to win its nets, and it was the Food Fighters who do come out on top. But fantastically, we have reached the conclusion of this game. But do not worry, anyone watching, because there is another game on the way in less than 30 minutes. But of course, I've been Judas Priestley, joined by Zats today. And of course, we've had Red Sniper providing all of the visuals that you need to be able to watch that great game. But there is still plenty more action to be had. That's it from us today, but do not go anywhere. Plenty more on the way.